Test, test, one, two, three, etc. Hello, hello. Welcome to the stream. I hope you guys are doing well this evening and having a great weekend. I will be getting started soon. I'm just tweaking some last minute setup things, but I think we're basically ready. Tonight is going to be, so I have a lot more windows than I usually do active because we're going to be jumping around between a few different things. So bear with me if there's some technical quirks. Please let me know if you have any issues with visuals or audio. I do have a second monitor, so I will be trying to keep my eyes on the um, stream quality and on the preview window. So hopefully, hopefully there won't be an issue. But if anything weird happens, you're not getting good signal or whatever, just let me know. I'll see what I can do to fix it. So, first of all, let me say hi to folks who are already in chat. Hello, Shinigami. I hope you're doing well. Hi, Dr. Strangle. Hi, One Smart. It's good to see you guys. Let me give a little bit of an intro on what tonight's stream is going to be, just so that people either here right now or who are listening back to the VOD can kind of know what to expect. So this video is going to be a response in part, mostly actually, to Sage of Thick Calves and Miyaboku Merchant's video, Adult Naruto and Sasuke versus Dragon Ball, that we talked about on Thursday. As always, usual disclaimers, I am coming at this only having watched up to around here, I think. I jumped back a little bit, but basically most of the first section. I'm not an expert on Dragon Ball, so I won't really be talking about Dragon Ball scaling all that much, although, I grew up reading the series alongside Naruto. It was actually the first manga that I really got into, so I'm familiar with the characters and the story and stuff like that. I just don't know the data books and the power scaling meta or whatever. Not as familiar with that. But I am pretty familiar with Naruto at this point, so hopefully I'll have something to contribute there. As always, please go watch Sage's video on his channel and come to your own conclusions. It's always best to watch something in context, directly from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Because, I don't want to risk misrepresenting things because I'm jumping around or cutting things off or whatever. So, usual stuff. That being said, the first thing I want to talk about tonight is Toneri and Urashiki. And we kind of we ended last stream by talking a little bit about whether or not the comet that Toneri sees is Urashiki, and if, for that reason, does that mean that Urashiki can move at multiple times faster than the speed of light, stuff like that, right? And I think I shared with you guys that I had a brief comment exchange with Sage in his video. I was actually responding to somebody else, but then Sage and I wound up talking a little bit. And what I tried to do was look into the terminology that was being used. What does Toneri actually say when he addresses this comment? What does he actually say when he's addressing the arrival of Urashiki? What are the other events that happened over the course of that arc of the story? What's the timeline, and what information can we glean from all of that to try to ascertain whether or not that comet was just a regular old comet, so to speak, or whether it was actually Urashiki? Because of course, this then becomes part of a scaling chain. If this particular element of the chain doesn't work, then unfortunately the rest, everything else later down on the chain, we can't really use, or at the very least it's not reliable. It's probably not going to lead us to the right conclusions. We might get there accidentally, but we're not getting there by virtue of having selected a piece of correctly evaluated evidence. So in other words, I'm testing to see whether or not this claim is true. What's the evidence behind it? And then also whether or not what are the implications, and then what is the context that we're left with, right? So Sage and Merchant seem to, as he calls him, by the way, feel free to correct me if I've heard him referred to as Miyaboku, as Merchant, as Steven, I think. So if I'm using the wrong name, please let me know. I don't want to misname anybody. I'll say Merchant for now because that's what Sage called him in the video. But the idea is, right, that part of the reason why the idea that Urashiki being the comet is compelling to Sage and Merchant is that it explains a lot of things. So even if we don't have very solid evidence, which, to be fair, I think he thinks he does have solid evidence, right? But even if we didn't, even if the evidence was a little shaky, it would make sense to believe in it because it explains a whole bunch of things and resolves a whole bunch of things. An alternate explanations are less parsimonious, meaning like they're less simple and elegant. They create more complications. They raise more questions than they answer. So they're more bulky. Excuse me, and they do a worse job of explaining uh, the overall context. So I have a lot more to say on that particular point, but basically what I wanted to try to do over the past few days is first of all review the Toneri timeline. He doesn't have very many appearances in the series, so that didn't take too long. But then try to really examine what it is he's saying specifically and see if we could figure this out, right? Just take a step back, you know, put aside my own personal feelings and my own, like, history, so to speak, with like the light speed meta and the universal meta and stuff like that, and just look at this one little thing and see what we can glean from it. Because I think it's a great opportunity. A lot of the times when I get frustrated with videos like this, it's really the missed opportunity that I'm lamenting. Like, yes, we can choose to just take one sentence that one character says and then say, look, this character said the thing, so it's a thing, so it's true, so, and then like build a whole argument around it. Or we can try to examine it in context and really see what the implications are, not just for our scaling, but for our understanding of the verse in general, our understanding of the culture, and the sort of lore and legacy surrounding it. There's a lot more of an interesting discussion to be had. And frankly, like, at the end of the day, I don't really care if Urashiki is, I think I mentioned this in comment to that other dude, that like, if it turns out that Urashiki is snail pace, or if it turns out that that Urashiki is a billion times faster than a new form of light that's a billion times faster than actual light, whatever, right? Like, it's a fictional character in a verse. I care a lot about the verse, but like, if I care about something, then it's my responsibility to understand it correctly and accurately and to be truthful and honest about it, right? So even if I don't like light speed meta, if fucking Urashiki is objectively light speed, then he is, and I have to accept that, right? But that being said, I think that there's a whole terroir, I guess is one way to put it, or like a just like I'm trying to think of like slightly less pretentious words, but zeitgeist comes to mind. I don't know. There's like a uh whole situation that goes into creating a character with specific terminology, specific references and imagery and stuff. And I feel like we're cheating ourselves if we don't at least try to understand it. So the first part of the stream is going to be a review of Toneri and Urashiki. Very, like, sort of Cliff's notes, I guess, but I'm going to try to provide as much detail as I can without taking the whole stream. Then we're going to talk a tiny bit about astronomy and the history of Chinese astronomy and how that factors into the terminology being used for Urashiki, like why those terms matter, what they mean, and stuff like that. And then I'm going to pull out this virtual planetarium software that I have set up. We're going to take a look at some of the constellations and just use this as an opportunity to learn a teeny tiny bit of astronomy. That should take hopefully about an hour and a half. And then the rest of the stream will just be responding to Sage's video. So if you're not interested in Toneri or Urashiki, you don't really care about that. If you're not really interested in learning about the, historical background and stuff, I would encourage you to check it out. I think you'll find it interesting. Like, I don't think, hopefully it's not a waste of your time. But if you're really just here to see me, like, be upset at this video, that will come, but it'll come in about, a little later down the stream. So I'll put timestamps for the people watching the VOD, and you are welcome to go take a break and come back later if that's your thing. But that is the intended plan for this evening. As a result, I probably won't be talking as much about other verses. So, Shinigami, you're more than welcome to share. Sorry, I also am eating dinner, so I'll try to keep that like off mic. But so Shinigami, you're more than welcome to share the stuff about Death Note. I probably won't respond in depth because I'm trying to stay relatively focused. But if I wind up missing something or like not giving your suggestion enough attention, please make sure to like please feel free to post in the Discord, and I'll follow up with you afterwards. I also wouldn't be opposed to doing like a Death Note focused stream. Maybe in like 2 to 3 weeks. I would want to reread at least part of the manga before I talked about it. But yeah, you know me, I have a tendency to ramble for hours until people say, like, just shut up and get to the video. But more politely, of course, because you guys are awesome. So I'm going to try to be a little bit focused today. I might not pay attention to chat quite as much about other non-universe, non-Naruto stuff. So if I miss a message, feel free to repeat it or just to tag me. If you want to hop into the Discord, and talk about any of this stuff. I did update the Discord link. I set it to never expire, and I updated it on the channel, so you should be able to just go to the channel. It's the first link in the channel description. And anybody who's listening to this, feel free to join. We're a very friendly, chill community, and well, basically just like don't be a dick, don't be a bigot, and you'll fit right in. So those are pretty much my only stipulations. So that being said, let me catch up on chat real quick, and then we're going to jive. We're going to dive right into the Urashiki stuff. Okay. So, let's review here. Hi there, Slimy Orbits. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well tonight. Dr. Strangle says, I'm the guy who did the calc for Sage. I would rather the math be real, even if the feat isn't. He wasn't going to use the numbers he got from an AI. Oh, interesting. Oh, the Urashiki calc. Okay, so, let me know. Hopefully I won't wind up being too harsh towards your work. Like, I'm not trying to insult you in any way. I am a little surprised given it seems to me that might be some friction between you and Sage. Maybe I misinterpreted that. So I guess I'm a little surprised, no judgment or anything, but I'm a little surprised that that you were okay with him using your calc in the first place. So I guess if you want to share any more about like what that process was like for you, how you feel about how it's been represented and stuff, please feel free. I'd be more than happy to hear what your experience was. But it is cool for you to contribute that stuff, and like from what I've seen, like your math tends to be on point. So, let's see. Shinigami says, of course you would use AI, but yo, can you do a calc for me on processing speed? I can share it in John's server. Oh, you're asking Dr. Tang about that. Yeah, that's totally fine. I'm not really good with calcs. I really want to learn how to do calcs better because I feel like I have to lean on other people, and I feel bad about being like, "Can you do my homework for me?" Like literally doing my freaking math homework for me. So I want to learn. I just haven't dedicated the time to that yet, unfortunately. But let's see. So here's the thing. Like I'm starting to like based on feedback from Warlick in our server, I am starting to feel like a little bit more. Like I mean this as a positive thing for the record. I'm starting to feel like a little bit more hesitant to just reach for stuff like ChatGPT for math. I talked it over with my partner, and she has some friends who work in like tech, not specifically with AI, but they know a lot more about this stuff than I do. And basically, their opinion on it is like, well, stuff like ChatGPT for like simple questions, um, like that, like where's a place near here that I can get some good hot dogs or something, right? It's like that shit has already been kind of quietly encroaching on our search engines for a long time, and it's hard to avoid that. And that the this feels kind of like a sketchy way to phrase it, but like the damage done by asking ChatGPT for help is really negligible compared to something like downsizing your whole development studio to replace all your artists with fucking just AI generated imagery, right? So I think there's an interesting topic to be had there. I'm tempted to pull up some calculations later on, but we'll see. I'll try to minimize that until I learn some more about it, because I feel like there's some good points that have been raised about the ethical ramifications, and I want to research it and make sure I'm not just being blithe about that, if that makes sense. But let's see. Shinigami asks, will you comment on my Light versus Itachi script? So I'm going to be honest with you, like, I would definitely be happy to read it. And I did skim through it, and I looked at the images that you posted. The only thing that I'll have to say is that I don't know enough about the verse to really comment on it in depth. Like, I don't think that I could really give you like a reaction to it the way that I'm doing a reaction to this video or whatnot without doing a lot more research. And it's a bit more time than I want to invest in that right now, because I'm trying to catch up on One Piece. I have video ideas that I've been procrastinating about. So no offense or anything. Like, I really do genuinely respect the time, effort, and passion that you put into it. So don't take it personally if I don't respond to it for a while. It's just I have to like triage my time, and I'm really bad at that to begin with. So it might be a while before I can address it. It's not something I'm as passionate about. But don't let me get in your way of I hope you will continue to work on it and stuff. Hey there, Cat and Cat. It's good to see you. Hope you are doing well. Glad I managed to catch your stream a little while ago. Thank you for the invitation to the Discord. It's been cool to chat with y'all, and thank you for stopping by this evening. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, I'm starting to repeat myself, but yeah, I'm just grateful. Like this past couple of weeks, I've been kind of reflecting on, um, just how cool it is to be able to connect with so many cool people. Like I'm super lucky, honestly, that you folks have found my channel and have been talking to me and sharing ideas and stuff. So really, really genuinely do appreciate it and hope you're doing well on your end. Um, hey there, sorry. I hope you're doing well. It's good to see you as always. Sorry, says I'm lurking. By the way, John, I'm reading Les Mis. Well, that's cool. I'd love to talk to you about Les Mis. I grew up listening to the soundtrack, and I don't know, my mom was really into it, and so it got played in my house a lot. And I saw a live performance, and I really liked it. And I kind of um, got the impression that it was like the Citizen Kane of musicals, and that it had like this esteemed status. I'm talking about the musical adaptation, of course. I haven't actually read the original book, so um, since then, though, it seems like a lot of the people that I know that are really into theater kind of don't like it at all. They think of it as kind of like pedestrian. So I don't know. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on it. If you have any thoughts on like the adaptations as well, because you know how interested I am in like adaptations and remakes and stuff like that. So yeah. Yeah, Shinigami saying hi to Captain Cat. That's awesome. Dr. Strangle says, me and Sage have had disagreements from philosophy to religion, from scaling to narrative, but he was always been cordial. Oh yeah, Shinigami, cordial means like polite and friendly and like well-meaning, well-mannered. I will say, yeah, that like Sage, in our interactions has also been cordial, for the most part. I think that sometimes, you know, there's an air of condescension that kind of comes with saying like, respectfully, brother, you need to go take a philosophy one-on-one class, 101 class. You don't understand argumentation, and if you don't get this, then you haven't read the books that I've clearly read, right? Like, that's being friendly on the surface. Underneath that, though, there's kind of an air of like, it's not really kind to say or imply certain things. So I appreciate that he's never like raged out at me or anything, but also I'm just kind of at nearing the end of my patience for some of the rhetoric. So hey, that's just my feeling about it. And I'll be the last one to ever want to like sow discord between people. So if the two of you are getting along, that's genuinely great. I hope that you're able to have a good discourse and collaboration. I know that like Kamui collaborated with him on a video recently, and like Kamui's cool. So I'm a little surprised just because I have my own very strong feelings about the style of language and argumentation, stuff like that, which you listen to me probably for literally hundreds of hours at this point, fucking whining about this stuff. Um, but yeah, it's all good. I hope that as long as you feel like your work was correctly represented and your work was used in a way that you feel was like ethical and correct, then I fully support that. Not that you need my approval, but just saying. The bless your heart passive aggressivism. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, my previous partner would have called that Midwestern nice, though. I don't know where Sage is from, but yeah. More words, I suppose. Yeah, just but yeah, like I'm learning new words all the time and stuff. So if there's ever anything that you're not sure about, feel free to ask me. Oh, Captain Cat, that's very nice of you to say. Thank you very much. You are cool too. Man, sometimes from how much I type, I feel like I'm becoming ill. That's fair. With how much I yap, I feel like, well, I think it would be glazing myself to call myself like L, but at the same time, like, uh, let's just say I have my own special interests, so I can sympathize with your passion for One Piece, because clearly I have my own that are similar, right? Um, yeah, okay. So with that being said, I think so. Bear with me here because I have some like a little bit of a different setup tonight. So I'm gonna need to make sure that I account for potential um, technical difficulties. So please bear with me, and again, let me know if there's anything wrong with the stream on your end. Although I will be keeping an eye on the preview window. So first of all, let's go back to Sage's video. I think it was around the 35-minute mark. And let's just very quickly review the claim so that we have it in mind regarding Toneri and Urashiki, right? So I think it's like right after here, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's after this B thing. Okay. So let's just play this back real quick and keep it in mind without too much commentary just yet. I'm going to bring the music's actually okay, I think. So this is probably going to be pretty loud. If it's too loud, let me know. I will adjust it. Video starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
Gave. If you stood up during the universal scaling, you're going to want to sit back, especially with how a lot of yous feel about Naruto speed scaling. We had to discuss why they're not relativistic in this video.
Yeah, yeah. So, in episode 8 of the Boruto anime, which is directly and heavily worked on by Kishimoto and Kodachi, we see Urashiki likened to a comet traveling across the night sky searching for Toneri. We know that this is Urashiki because Toneri later references him as the celestial body he's addressing here. Now, Urashiki arrives in the Cancer constellation, which we can see here, along with the Gemini constellation right next to it, as it should be. Now, where this path leads to seems to be somewhere in the middle of these two stars here, which would be right around the beehive cluster. Now, what's important about this is it grants us workable values for the zoomed out frame of Urashiki zipping across the sky. Based on
Okay, so are you guys able to hear that? Shinigami says increase the volume. How's
the
this?
distance he covers here, I've gained a range of values, which are all absurdly high. Since he's stated to have entered the Cancer constellation and he's actively looking for Toneri, it's most pragmatic to assume that he's not coming from Toneri's direction, but rather from the opposite side or...
Okay, right. So I think that's enough for now. And now, so we're gonna start. Okay. Sorry, I see your comment there, Shinigami. Let me know if this sounds better. Let me go back. Let me play it one more time. I've increased the volume, and let me know if this sounds good. Okay, I'm gonna do it one more time.
Naruto and is. I think the second conclusion is more reasonable and clearly consistent, so that will be our mid-ball.
Let me skip ahead. Sorry.
Especially with how a lot of yous feel about Naruto speed scaling, we had to discuss why they're not relativistic in this video.
Yeah.
How's that? Is the volume okay?
Yeah, so in episode 8 of the Boruto anime, which is directly and heavily worked on by Kishimoto and Kodachi, we see Urashiki likened to a comet traveling across the night sky searching for Toneri. We know that this is Urashiki because Toneri later references him as the celestial body he's addressing here.
Okay, so this is okay, cool. Thank you for genuinely thank you for letting me know, because it's I don't have the audio preview on my end, so I appreciate that. Okay, so there's a couple of things to be aware of here. The first thing is that he refers to, so what Sage is saying, we covered last time, so I'll be brief. Sage is saying that Toneri refers to Urashiki as a celestial body. Now, right away, we can see on screen that he doesn't call him a celestial body, he calls him a celestial being. So technically speaking, if I wanted to, I could just be like, this whole point, and therefore all subsequent scaling is bogus because Sage is not using the right word. Why is he using celestial body instead of celestial being? Well, I can't read his mind, but as far as I can tell, it's because the term celestial body can essentially refer to anything in the sky. So you could call a star or a comet or a planet or even a galaxy a celestial body. If Toneri were actually saying celestial body, then he could potentially be referring to either a comet or anything in the sky. So celestial body would actually work in description of both a person who is like an alien flying through space and also in description of an actual comet. So like it works semantically, but celestial being doesn't. And the reason why is kind of gonna take a second to explain. But the short version is, as we talked about before, that the term that fucking Toneri uses for comet is hokiboshi. Now, the modern Japanese, like the commonly used Japanese term is suisei. And again, apologies to anybody who actually speaks Japanese for my shitty pronunciation. I'm doing the best I can, right? So suisei is the modern term for a comet. Hokiboshi is a bit more antiquated, and it's not something that you really see all that much these days. So let me actually pull that up. And I will play the Japanese audio of the anime as well if I can in a second, so that you can hear that in context. So let me get Jisho going. Okay. Yeah, so... yeah, it's a cinema. Okay, 1 second. I'm sorry. I got so many fucking windows up tonight. But I will be ready in just a sec. Okay, here we go. So this should be Jisho window. Okay, so Japanese dictionary. We can check if anybody like doesn't like this anymore, right? Sorry, if anybody does like objects to Jisho as being like a reliable source, I think Miss Anne said that it's maybe not the best. I'm happy to look at other sources as well. Okay, so If you use the katakana, it's a little bit more common apparently, but the uh, kanji form is rarely used, and the definition is just comet, right? I think this said something about it not being used, just that it's rarely used, right? That doesn't mean it's not ever used, but it's a bit more antiquated. It's a bit less modern, so to speak, with the more modern version being suisei, right? That's the other one that I mentioned. So this is the more commonly used term for comet. Now it's, or I think so, right? Just to be suisei, yeah, I'm pretty sure, but just to be sure, let's type this in. That is not what I was looking for. English, okay. This is probably going to be really, yeah, suisei, okay, just to be sure. And this one over here, just to do our due diligence, right? This should be comet as well. But notice something interesting there, right? Like when I typed it in, the auto detection pulled up Chinese rather than Japanese. So just keep that in mind, right? That like, I think it will still work if we switch to Japanese here, but yeah, it does. But it was interesting that it came up with Chinese first, right? So just keep that in mind. It'll become relevant later. And notice the suggestion over here actually supplies the, well, let's see. Yeah, supplies the katakana version of it. So that being said, he then refers to the celestial being by a different term. And that term is really interesting if you look that up. What he calls him specifically is Amatsubito. Now, you might recognize Amatsu as part of Koto Amatsu Kami, right? Now, Koto Amatsu Kami, as I'm sure you recall, is a jutsu within Naruto, but Koto Amatsu Kami is specifically also a character or a kami, or, however you want to phrase it, from Shinto, right? It is a character that is an indelible part of Japanese history and mythology. Now, granted, I am coming at this from the perspective of an ignorant foreigner who did not grow up in Japan, who did not grow up in the culture, trying to piece this together as best I can on Wikipedia. So take everything that I'm going to say with a massive fucking lump of salt. But that being said, I think that regardless, your average person who has a Western perspective, who wants to try to learn a bit about this is a decent jumping off point to learn a bit more, right? So if you're not familiar, Koto Matsukami, right, collective name for the first gods which came into existence at the time of the creation of the universe. So this term, right, like I'm sure you guys know if you've spent any amount of time with anime or video games that take place in Japan, inspired by Japanese stuff, you've run into the term kami, right? Even in Dragon Ball, the term comes up, right? It's a pretty commonly understood thing. It doesn't really translate quite to God, but it has a similar context that sort of vaguely translate that way into the West, right? Understanding also that, the Koromatsu Kami are a group of deities, right? It refers to a class of deity that were sort of the progenitors of the universe in Shinto. And one of them is referred to Ameno Minakanushi, if I'm getting that correct. And Ameno Minakunashi was also referred to as the spirit of the North Star, right? So there is an intertwining here, if you look into this more, that you will find between these names, these figures, and not just the idea of like characters in heaven, but also specifically of like, of stars, right? So it makes sense that there would be a connection between stuff like constellations and, astral bodies, to use a term, and the idea of heavenly beings or heavenly creatures or something like that descending from the stars. I mean, like, just the fact that, like, they're coming from outer space intuitively, right? It kind of makes sense. But this is, the terms being used are part of this specific cultural context. Now, that being said, what he specifically says is Amatsubito, right? Now, Bito, I believe, is a different pronunciation, like an alternate pronunciation of Hito, which Hito just means like person. So let's type in Amatsubito and see what comes up. What's interesting is that I don't think that Amatsubito, it translates literally as heavenly being or celestial being, right? I don't think that this actually is like a real word, so to speak. It's a phrase that is kind of cobbled together from other things, in that if I look for this in a Japanese dictionary, it doesn't come up. It doesn't appear in Jisho. it does appear like the individual kanji do. So you can see like this means person, this means heaven, this means heaven's sky, imperial, etc. Right? But if I just type this into Google, right? Well, this is the that's interesting. It comes up again. It detects Chinese simplified. But if I were to go to like Japanese dictionary, and I go to again, I don't know which ones of these are more used or not. It doesn't show up in this dictionary. Okay, let's try this one over here. I think I checked this before. I don't think it does. So yeah, the individual components of the word do show up, but this word itself seems to be a word that was invented for the purposes of certain fictional universes. So the ones that come up are specifically the Otsutsuki clan and these creatures from Bleach. Those are the only references that I've found so far, and the majority of the references, at least in the first few pages of Google, are specifically coming from things related to the Naruto fandom. And feel free to double check this and look into this yourself. It's possible I just missed something, right? If we just go through a few pages over here, all the results are from Naruto with one exception, maybe a couple that I missed from Bleach. So Toneri specifically refers to the comet by an archaic term that specifically means a comet, right? He's referring to it as a specific bit of celestial object, like a specific class of celestial object, and specifically electing to use a term that means that. And then when he refers to Urashiki later, right, he calls him not celestial body, really, in the sense of meaning like anything in the sky that could be an astronomical object or not. He specifically uses a term that pertains to heavenly, celestial, or divine humans. Like he calls him a divine person. So he's basically like, and he evokes the language that's associated with, like with Amatsu, right? He's evoking the language that's associated with creator gods. So he's calling the comet a comet, and he's calling the god a god, which is why those two things are not the same thing. Now, technically speaking, to be fair, there could be some other explanation that says, okay, well, regardless of any of that, the comet is still Urashiki, right? And we're going to explore that. We're going to explore that by examining, does that actually make sense within the context of the story, putting together all the different parts that we can find, and looking at the sequence of events, does that actually make sense? And in doing so, I'm going to try to answer some questions that I've had for a long time about like what the cracks in space-time are that Toneri is fixing, and like what's going on with Nguyen, the Jogan, right? I'm going to try to shed a tiny bit of light on that as well, so we can maybe all learn from that. And the purpose of doing all this, of taking all this fucking time to go through this, not that I mind, like this has actually been really fun, is to just demonstrate that like, largely speaking, when doing power scaling stuff like Sage is doing, you have two options, two opposite ends of a spectrum. One end is saying, I'm just going to quote voice crack. I'm just going to quote things specifically that suit my argument, and I don't really care what the implications are, as long as I can point to this quote, and as long as it helps me clear my points, then whatever, right? Or you can say, well, this is an opportunity for us to understand things in context and do a deep dive and to really try to put all the pieces together. And I think that it's a goddamn shame that the first approach tends to get used by certain members of the community more than the second approach, and the first approach comes at the expense of the second approach. So I've mentioned this to Sage, for the record, multiple times, like about a year ago, whenever his maybe it was less than a year, whenever the video with him and Six on Gohan versus Boruto came out. Like we talked about it then, and we just talked about it recently in the comment section, and I mentioned like, hey, okay, you weren't interested in doing this, but here, I just went and did this research, right? I put this stuff together. Here you go. Here's the context. And like we were talking about with Ursa last time, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. He doesn't care. He's like, well, this just doesn't matter. He's like, categorically, this is just not relevant. I explained in great detail why it was relevant, but he doesn't care. So at this point, I'm kind of not really expecting that conversation to go anywhere, and I'm not even like responding to him directly anymore. Like I was just trying to talk to somebody in his comment section. But this isn't for him or for Merchant, although I hope that if they find this, they'll learn something from it. It's for me, and it's for you guys. It's an opportunity for us to just try to learn a little bit more and clear up some mysteries and see if we can better understand and appreciate this stuff. So that being said, let me see if I can get the video capture working. I need to bring up my notes. One of the things that I did in preparation for the stream is I tried to track down all the instances of Toneri that I could find leading up to the advent of what's his name, Urashiki showing up, right? So there are only a few Toneri scenes even in Boruto the anime. The problem is that it's hard to show this stuff on stream because of the copyright detection. So previously, my stream has gotten shut down temporarily, like midstream, when I've been playing back something from fucking Crunchyroll or whatever. So what I tried to do in anticipation of tonight is to find these scenes and to get captures. And so I'm going to play them, but I'm probably going to have to play them in very short bursts. And I will ask you to please let me know if the stream goes down. Hopefully, because these are just like captures that I've taken, and if I play them in short bursts, it won't be a problem. But who knows how strict the detection is. I don't even know how the detection software works, so we shall see. But the goal here will be to go through the stuff that Toneri says, to just pay attention, to just see if we can figure out what the fuck this cryptic-ass moon dweller is talking about, and then go back to that claim and see if we've learned anything. So let's start from episode 8, okay? Let me see. I gotta see if I can pull up the display capture. Hopefully this works. Okay. So it looks like it's showing up on my screen. I'll just wait and see if it shows up there as well on the stream before I get started. So this is going to be in episode 8, and this is at the very start of the episode. This is not a capture of the full episode, so if you're confused about the time codes down here, it's not the full episode, it's just like a segment from it. That being said, if you guys want the specific time codes, I'm more than happy to track them down and to share them in the Discord or in the comments section, etc., etc. So I'm just waiting to see if this updates. Okay, yeah, it did. Okay, cool. So that being said, let me go ahead and hit the play button, and we will see how this goes. And I'm gonna pause it a lot just to avoid the copyright. Okay, so again, sorry if this winds up. I probably shouldn't have shown that. In and of itself, it's probably gonna be a problem. But let's see. So the episode starts off with you're just in Konohagakure. And then basically, it's a moon. Okay, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. We're in Konohagakure, and the camera starts panning up to the moon, right? Episode 8. So let me actually keep the volume pretty low. And I think I apologize for this if it's not ideal, but I am going to play some music in the background just to mess with the detection a little bit. But I'll keep it quiet. Okay, here we go. So in Konoha, we are like looking up at the moon. Let's see what happens. Okay, zoom in on the moon. Now, the first thing we see before we meet Toneri is this field of stars. Now, this is where, Saria, I would actually really appreciate it if you have some insight here, because I personally just like do not know. Like I am like really bad at recognizing stuff like this, right? I don't know. I'm really bad at like finding like images and constellations and stuff like that, right? So like I thought that this might be Cassiopeia over here. Sage seemed to be pretty readily able to identify, like I think he sketched on screen like, oh, this is Gemini and this is Cancer and stuff like that. I'm not sure about that, right? I personally am skeptical, but I'll admit that like I looked at this for like an hour and I couldn't, like I kind of struggled to find where the constellations actually were. So anybody else who's like more familiar with this stuff, please let me know if you can recognize any constellations right here. But the key things to look at to start off with are maybe these two little stars. I don't know if okay, the mouse is showing up. Okay, these two little stars here right in the center of the screen. And then as an anchor point, pay attention to this purple star, this pinkish purplish star, and this little box that's defined over here. It kind of looks like an E, right? Those are the two things to pay attention to, right? So it's kind of hard to say for sure what part of the universe we're looking at right now, how far away from Earth we are. I think intuitively, based on like the Kuleshov effect, which if you're not familiar with that, it's like a filmmaking technique or like a psychological effect that gets used in filmmaking, which basically means if you see two images like after each other, you're probably going to intuit that they are connected. So for example, if you see a person sitting at a table looking down at a plate and then it cuts and you see food on the plate, and then it cuts and you see the person like chewing, and then it cuts back to the plate, even though you didn't see the person, and the plate is empty, sorry, even though you didn't see the person like actually eat with your own eyes, you assume, and I think correctly, that the person ate the food that was on the plate, because the sequence of events is implying that, and it's just like they don't need to literally show everything, right? Of course, that's debatable. There are some films that actually deliberately use that to fuck with your expectations and understanding, and sometimes, like filmmakers, if they're just not particularly skilled or competent or whatever, they might not execute that correctly. But that's the general flow of things, right? So just keep that in mind. That being said, this could hypothetically be anywhere in the universe. I think we can assume that it is on Earth, and I'm going to say Earth instead of the Naruto planet or whatever, just for convenience, but it could be anywhere. So let's just keep in mind that if somebody wanted to make the argument that this is out in deep space somewhere else, that's not like crazy to suggest, right? Let's continue. Focusing on again this little E-shaped star thing over here, and then these two little stars over here, and also more so than these two, like this region of space. Okay, so camera jumps. Okay, so we see the comet, and I'm sorry, but there isn't like a really convenient way to frame backward. But what I can do here is if I keep hitting E, should advance. We can see the comet starts from over here, and it is very, very quick, moves very, very quickly across the screen. So, keeping in mind that, like, the reason why a comet emits light is because when a comet gets close to the sun, the comet, like we talked about last time, and again, sorry, it can, I'm sure, put me to shame with a better explanation, but basically, a comet is a ball of ice and dust, and as it gets close to the sun, it starts to heat up. And as it starts to heat up, and it gets bombarded by solar radiation, solar wind, whatever, those dust and ice particles heat up and get like scattered in different directions and at different amounts, which is why comets will tend to have two tails that are pointing in slightly different directions. And then there will also be a glowing core at the center. I forget what the term for it is. I think it's the soma or the coma or something like that. But yeah, so the characteristics of a comet that you would expect to see would be a glowing core. It would be two tails, probably of different colors in slightly different directions. And that's pretty much it. To me personally, just anecdotally here, this looks more like a shooting star than a comet. A shooting star meaning like a meteor that has entered the atmosphere and is like quickly burning up and dashing across the sky. So the tail of it, like the color of it, the design of it looks like a comet, but the behavior of it looks more like a shooting star. And if you've ever gone out and like watched a meteor shower, or like even just look one up on YouTube, you'll see what I mean, right? But that being said, let's continue. So goes across the sky, paying attention again to this little pink dot. So, camera cut. Now, there's something I want to point out that is really interesting. I don't think it's relevant, but I think that it's worth noting real quick. Just something I noticed, right? So notice after the comet passes through, if you look over here at a certain point, there's a star that kind of starts to shine and light up. It's like it's twinkling there, right there, that particular frame, right? So initially, I thought that the next frame, like we zoom in here. Check my DMs. Okay, let me check. So Dr. Strangle sent DMs. The Destiny of Stars, time for the harvest is here. Oh, yeah, that's really good. Okay, hang on a second. So Dr. Strangle did what I should have done. And let me see if I can, probably the easiest way to do this is just to drag this over. Okay. Yeah, this is actually great. I really appreciate this. Let me bring this other one up too. I gotta switch the windows 1 second. Yeah, cool. All right. So how do I do this? Display capture. Okay, I think that's it. Okay, so let me know if you're seeing the right thing. You should be seeing an image in Chrome with Toneri there. And yeah, this is actually very helpful, right? Because we see those two stars in the background. We see the path of the comet superimposed. Wow, this was really good. And we see the panning down to Toneri as well. Actually, this is super helpful because then we could look for other constellations and see if this checks out. I do appreciate that you've drawn this. So this is Cancer, right? Although I think Cancer doesn't it have like an additional like sprung to it or whatever. But yeah, that's cool. Really, really cool. What I would love to do, we don't have to do it now, but what I would love to do is also maybe with Saria, just like go through and see if we can identify some of the other constellations here to confirm the position in the sky. And we will try to do that when I pull up the planetarium thing later. But yeah, this is super awesome. I really appreciate you sharing this. Let's see. Did I get another DM over here? The red is what Sage has again. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense, and it does like visually. It looks like that for sure. Cool. I'm gonna get back to the video thing, but that is super helpful. If you don't mind me keeping that up as a reference, that'd be super helpful too. So let's see. Guess this is probably just gonna look like the same thing. Let me switch. Okay, so should be seeing the VLC window again. Now let's keep going here real quick. So notice that the camera cuts there, and then in order, so like you can say, okay, we don't know exactly what region of space we're in right now, but we can confirm that we were in the same region of space and about the same distance away as the previous panel, because we can anchor ourselves with this little purple dot. So again, purple dot is over here, and this is practically the same size if you compare these two. This is a little bit bigger, so arguably this is zoomed in with respect to the other image. But this is Toneri's POV on the moon, and this would actually be further back from his POV, so like closer to the Earth, right? So that's going to be, well, depending on where the Earth is. But yeah, this is going to be relevant later when we talk about like the luminosity of the comet. So just keep it in mind that like this is still overall like a good representation of what Toneri is seeing. He is seeing this bright object pass in front of his field of vision, and its luminosity with respect, like how bright it is with respect to the background objects, is something that we're going to need to talk about in a second. But let's keep going. So I'm going to try to play the audio a little bit here because it's important to understand what Toneri is saying in Japanese. So let me know if you hear it okay. So again, pardon my pronunciation. What he said was Kishiku ni hokiboshi ga haita, which, if you translate it from Japanese, means Kishiku is the constellation of the ghost. Hokiboshi is the star, and that translates to broom star, right? It means comet. Gahaita, which means he went inside of. So he is saying that the comet went inside the constellation, but specifically the constellation not of Cancer but of Ghost. And this is an important distinction for a couple of reasons. First of all, the constellation of Cancer is a Western constellation that refers to Western zodiac, and it is occupying roughly the same region of space. In fact, some of the stars in Cancer are the same as in the Ghost, but it is a different constellation that occupies a different region of space because it's not the exact same. And it also has a different significance mythologically, culturally, etc., right? Within the Chinese astronomical system, it is a different, distinct body with its own meaning and significance to it. So, that being said, I would like to jump into the planetarium software real quick. I think I can do this by switching that, and it looks like that's going through. So this is a free piece of software called Stellarium, or Stellarium. And so you can download it, and it's pretty easy to use. I can give you a little walkthrough. Basically, I only spent like a half an hour with this, and I think I still basically kind of understand how to use it decently enough. But what I've done here is within this software, one second, I have, it's a little awkward to use on stream because it's fucking, yeah, okay, so F4, search would be F4, okay. A little awkward to use on stream because of the window situation, but you should still be able to make out what's happening with it. So in the bottom left, if you look very closely, you should see that I've set the location to Kyoto just to have like a Japanese frame of reference, right? And this is basically just a view of the night sky. Now, just to avoid confusion, I'm sorry about the weirdness with this, but let me see if I can do this. One second. Location window, F6. Okay. So you can set the location in here. This is not working as well as I'd expected. One second, guys. I'm sorry. Okay. So you can set the location from within there. You can also um, establish like different viewing perspectives. And what I'd like to do, this is okay. Sorry, this is being difficult, but we're getting there. Okay, so if you go to the view settings, something that you can do that I think is really interesting and very helpful is that you can examine things from the perspective of different cultures at different times. So if you go through here, and you select like world modern and just click that, right? Exit out of this and then zoom out. You can actually, if we search for Cancer in the constellations list, come on, it's not showing me the mouse cursor, which is infuriating, but that's fine. So if we search for Cancer, yes. Okay, so this is disappointing. One second, I want to see if I can. The problem is that I didn't encounter before is that it's unfortunately not locking to window. So I can't see the mouse cursor, so it's like giving me trouble. So one second. As I mentioned, technical difficulties, but we'll figure it out. Okay, so Cancer. Well, this might not work as well as I had hoped. Oh well. So maybe you guys can help me find Cancer. I think it's actually. Oh, there it is. Fuck. Never mind. Okay. So I'm being silly. So there it is. There's Cancer, right? You can see it's called Crab over here, but there's Venus. There's Lesser Dog, kind of Minor, I think. There's Orion. There's the twins, Gemini, Castor, and Pollux, etc. So right there's Ursa Major up there. And at the moment, we are not looking at anything that's called the constellation of the Ghost, obviously. So we can do this if you go to the settings menu and you go to configuration, which I'll try to do. You can see the mouse disappearing probably, right? And you go to, or sorry, is it viewing options? Yeah, go to viewing options, and then you pick culture. You can go down to Eastern Asia, and you can select either Chinese, Korean, Japanese, modern, etc. Right? So if you click on Japanese Yasui map, you can actually see that in the same region of sky, we can actually see the Ghost constellation. Now it's called Ghosts, but also like note in the middle that there's another one called Cumulative Corpse Gas, and we'll get to that in a second. But basically, like it is a similar constellation, but note that it has a different shape. Okay, so let's go back to that. Where was it? F4. Yeah, let's go back to the culture map, and let's go to Chinese. Here we go. Okay, and you'll notice that it also it's referred to as Ghost. The name changed as well, Cumulative Corpses, but it does have that kind of like box-like shape. And if we take a closer look at it, we don't really see any pink stars, but we do see like a cluster of additional stars in the middle. Right, and so, and it is described like it forms this four-pointed little box that takes up roughly the same position as Cancer in the sky. Okay, so when people say that like this context doesn't matter and then they go ahead and try to use this stuff for power scaling, I don't understand how it possibly couldn't matter, because literally like Toneri is talking about a different constellation that occupies a different region of space, and yes, there is some overlap with it, but if you want to be as precise as possible, you should be aware of what region of space you're actually talking about. Because again, like just to switch cultures one more time, if we go here and switch back to like modern, just the modern world one, you'll notice that like the bounds of the Crab constellation extend much further up and down compared to the Ghost constellation. So again, like if it goes right through the middle of it and you just want to use the middle two stars, that's one thing. But if you consider the other stars as part of it, like Crab includes stars that aren't included in Ghost, right? And depending on how you define the bounds of this thing, I think you can actually, I might not be able to do it now, but like with this software, if it was actually working correctly, you can actually see the images of the art displayed for the constellations. So yeah, here we go. So like understanding that a constellation is just a fake or virtual image that we decide to project onto a canvas in order to help us represent something, if you're defining the region of space that you're talking about as anything within this image of the Crab, that's going to be a very different surface area and a very different collection of potentially applicable points when compared to something like the Ghost constellation, right? So from my perspective, all of this matters quite a bit, and this is even before we start talking about the you know, about the what the constellation actually means in the Chinese system. Now, what I was trying to do previously was I was trying to place the stars that we were seeing directly within this map just to try to get a better sense of it. And this is where I failed. Like, I was not able to come up with this. So if you guys have feedback, if you guys can figure out where exactly this is, I would appreciate it. I'd be curious. But basically, I was trying to figure out what are the two stars that we're looking at. And if we, I wish I could like show the mouse cursor here, but if you go from the bottom of the Ghost constellation, from that open end right there, and you just go forward, I was trying to look for stars that match up, like going sort of forward and above, that kind of match up with what we're seeing. The best that I can do is maybe like the Wood Star or the star in the South River constellation, um, or like the Wood Star and the Water Star, maybe Gemini are kind of like in the right place, sort of. So like Castor and Pollux. So like I couldn't quite map these directly. Like looking, like trying to look at the picture we were looking at before from the anime, trying to look for stuff in the region of sky right above Bureau of Water Supply, like right under Pile of Firewood. I wasn't actually able to find anything. So I think it's probably meant to be like the South River constellation that we're seeing light up. I'd love to be able to figure that out because I imagine that there's some other significance there. It could also be Gemini. It could also be like those two stars up there in the North River constellation. That would make sense, but it's a little out of position, so I don't know if it's just going to map one to one. Of course, it could just be like an out of scale thing. So anyway, hopefully you found that interesting. We'll get back to the anime itself in just a second. But yeah. Let me catch up on chat real quick. So Saria says you can still see that they're there even if it's harder because of the clouds and sometimes the stars aren't out. Oh wait, sorry, I missed a whole bunch of messages. My bad. Saria says I can't make out much. Maybe it's there. I could be wrong, but I'm not perfect. But I feel like if there was something meant to actually be there, it'd be a bit more prominent and not just like splash. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Again, I may be wrong. Maybe I just don't know Kishi or Yukimoto's art style well enough. But even in Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom, and Age of Imprisonment, and Age of Calamity, these are 3D Zelda titles, plus the Musou games, where they don't go out of the way to make the constellations look bigger. They did in Wind Waker, Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess. You can still tell they're there, even if it's harder because the clouds and sometimes the stars aren't out, blah, blah, blah. But you know what I mean? Yeah, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And in Zelda, the constellations don't even play a significant role. It's just a fun Easter egg to say, hey, look, it's the constellations of our universe. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. So I would like to think that they try to make it visible even in the wild era. It'd be a bit more transparent there too. But again, I could be wrong. Yeah, I think it's also just kind of like an assumption, which may indeed be correct, but it's a bit of an assumption to just be like, because they referenced a constellation, then they drew them correctly, right? Like we're applying a certain level of, for lack of a better word, like faith or whatever, and then like you know, just trying to like hope that they got it right so that we can do our fucking scaling off of it. Yeah, I saw your message there, going through the Crab constellation, going through the Ghost constellation. Also, because like the exact translation changes from place to place, but yeah, welcome to the cumulative corpse gas cluster, everyone. I hope you enjoy flying through the cumulative corpse gas cluster. Which is, you know, if you get traumatized by that, you can stop by the Bureau of Sake Brewing afterwards to drown your sorrows. I do. This is not meant to be mocking at all. Like I do genuinely really love the the names of a lot of these things. We got like Turtle Beak over there, Banner of the Three Stars, High Terrace, Feudal Kings. There's one over here that's like, yeah, this is probably my favorite one over there. Send armed forces to suppress Vassal of Three Stars. There's also Interpreters of Nine Dialects, right? It's like really, really cool. So yeah, anyway, if you look closely at the image with the red lines, you can see the double upping of the stars, which kind of looks like perspective lines. Yeah, let me take a little look at that in a second. That makes sense. Slimy Orb says the stars and comets made a face. Oh, I didn't see that. But then again, like I've never actually seen the Man in the Moon. I can't, like, I just can't see it. I don't know why. I don't know what's wrong with me. Yeah, 1 second. Let me check messages here. Oh yeah, gotcha. Soon you got me. Cool. Yeah, so that being said, that I kind of just wanted to use that as an excuse to just like learn something about astronomy. I'm sorry that this particular software is not really playing super nice. Unfortunately, it's just you know, it's kind of not what's the word for it? It's kind of not doing what I would like it to, in that it's not showing me the cursor and it makes it much harder to use. But this is genuinely a really cool piece of software that usually doesn't happen. And so I would highly recommend, if you want to learn about astronomy, you want to just mess with this, just learn about constellations and stuff, check it out. It's free. It's super, super in-depth. Like, there's a ton of options. There's a ton of like cool features that I never would have even thought of. You can set arbitrary day and time and stuff like that, right? So really, really cool stuff. Okay, let's see if we can get back to this. So, that being said, let's go back and take a look at what our friend Toneri had to say over here. So he says, the time for the harvest is near, the destiny of the stars. Now, specifically, I'm going to get part of this wrong, but Miss And, when she did her fucking awesome translation and context explanation for the Momoshiki novel stuff that we talked about before, she mentioned that the term sadame has a bit of a different connotation to destiny. It more means like the rule or the law, and it can be translated to destiny, but it's more of like a sort of a deeply embedded cultural prescription almost. Let me see if I can pull up I'm making a note to myself to pull that up later. But yeah, the term sadame doesn't really translate directly to destiny. It loses some context there. So what Toneri is saying is that like there is like a law or a rule or like a specific order of things that is happening in the stars. And of course, like Sage didn't mention that in his video. He didn't show the clip. He didn't think it was important. But yeah, directly after he sees this comet, he then says specifically like this is the fate of the stars, right? So he's talking about a prescribed order of events that the comet is a part of. Now, you might think that that doesn't matter because, oh, it's just Urashiki at the end of the day. Let's see if you currently feel that way. That's fine. Let's see if your mind changes at all as we continue to watch through this. Okay, so I'm gonna reduce the volume a little bit. Let's keep going. So he says the key to it all, meaning the key to the destiny of the stars, is Boruto. So I think that's important to understand as well, right? Like, Boruto, let me switch windows here real quick. Boruto himself is about to be recruited by Toneri for this, like, celestial mission, so to speak. And as a result, he is going to, like, Toneri is going to go down to Earth, and he's going to recruit Boruto for assistance in dealing with some shit. Let's just put it that way. Okay, so that was episode 8. The next one up is going to be 13, I think. Let me take a look at my notes. Okay, so the next time that we see... actually, one second. Oh yeah, so later in this episode, Toneri actually comes down to Earth and talks to Boruto. So let me see if I can find that real quick. I think it's just this one. Yeah, so you gotta be careful here with the copyright detection, but hopefully this should display, and this should show the playlist as well. Hopefully that's helpful. So the scene starts with Boruto. This is still in episode 8. Boruto's lying down. He's trying to get to bed, and he's just like had this new ocular ability called the Jogan that has awakened in his eye. And at this point, he doesn't really know what it is. He's like trying to figure it out, right? Now, if you are just a manga reader and you're wondering about like what the Jogan even is, it's an ocular ability that is specifically either given to Boruto or awakened with the assistance of Toneri. It's hard to say like for sure exactly what's going on, but basically it connects Boruto directly to Urashiki, right? And it's a new ocular power that's essentially unique to him, and it's not in the manga. Whether or not you think that's canon or representative, I don't really want to debate that right now. We can talk about it later, but let's just assume that it counts. Apparently Kishimoto worked on it or whatever, or he likes it, so let's just move on. Okay. So I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit. He starts murmuring to himself, going ahead. Toneri shows up in this weird dreamy space. I forget if this is actually on the moon or whatever, but basically Toneri shows up and he starts talking to Boruto through his dream. You can see he's talking there, talking to you through your dream. Okay. Now, what does he say specifically to Boruto? And I pause. Sorry for the like pauses and starts and stops. I'm just trying to be conscious of the copyright detection, which I don't know if this will be enough to fool it anyway. But like, so he refers specifically to Boruto's eye as the star of hope, right? So he's using kind of abstract terminology to refer to this kid being like a participant in fate. It's an eye of hope that will protect against destruction that will eventually come to pass. He says, point. The power of hope slumbers deep within you. He asks if it's the eye, related to the eye. With the eye, you will shoulder the fate of this world. Okay. So, and then we see this, very important, right? We see that like weird ghostly thing. Your eye will probably guide you to the light which will dispel darkness. Okay. So we see that like weird, creepy, shadowy creature who's in darkness, and specifically Toneri says, hey, your eye is going to guide you to deal with it. So if you're not familiar, if you haven't watched the first 15 episodes of the Boruto anime, what happens in this arc is there's a character called Sumire who eventually gets reincorporated into the manga and is initially called Class Rep, right? And Sumire is, a spoiler alert, I guess, but like Sumire is the descendant of somebody who worked for the Foundation for Root. And as a result, I think, I forget the details, but like he died, something, hated the village. And she is essentially like sort of a living, she has like a summon called Nue that's based on I want to say a yokai, but I'm not sure. But basically, because you'll see like Nue appear in other games and media and stuff, right? So the idea is that Nue can suck up chakra. It can absorb people's chakra, and then when it gets enough chakra, it will explode, it'll detonate, and it'll destroy the village. And Nue also has its own little like pocket dimension that is very similar to one of Kaguya's dimensions. There's also some mention that like one of the abilities or one of the things that's relevant to all this happening came out of Danzo trying to study Kaguya's abilities and replicate them or something. So there's a vague connection to Kaguya. I think it's expanded on a little bit more in the novel. But yeah, basically, the whole arc is that Sumire tries to destroy the village to get revenge. She uses the summoning called Nue, and that ghostly, dark, shadowy figure that we just saw was Nue. So, specifically, Toneri is coming to Earth and saying, like, hey, Nue is about to show up, and he's about to start sucking people's chakra and ruining everybody's day. You gotta go do something about that, right? So, now let's go ahead to episode 15, I think, and this is the very end. This is the first time we see Momoshiki and Kinshiki in the anime. Let me just make sure that I have the correct episode reference. Where is my note page over here? Yes. Okay, so 15. Let me read this back. Okay, so episode 15. Right up here, like if this is at the end of the episode, so Sasuke and Naruto have been talking about a scroll that they recovered from Nue's dimension, I think, and they think that it's going to help like lead them to Kaguya or help them understand Kaguya better or something like that. Like Sasuke's been on this quest to track down Kaguya, figure out where the fuck she is. If you're familiar with the versus Momoshiki arc in general anyway, you'll probably be well aware that Sasuke goes looking for her dimensions and shit like that, right? Okay. So, that being said, moving along, Toneri now is looking up and he's seeing the sun eclipsed by the Earth, which I think is significant, right? This sort of event only comes around once in a while. And, I mean, sorry, I can probably give us more information if you would like to, as to how often the sun would be eclipsed by the Earth from the moon's perspective. But obviously, this is like a periodic celestial event that you can, just like eclipses on Earth, that you can sort of time things around, if that makes sense. So continuing on. So Toneri says the gate that Nue opened has been sealed. So this confirms that Toneri does specifically know what Nue is, knew what Nue was up to. Nue opened up this gate, and he directly participated in helping to seal that gate. So that's important context. Okay, moving along. This Jogan's turn won't be coming up for a while. Weird translation. I probably should have looked into the original Japanese, but I think what he's saying is that like the Jogan is going to be useful later, and it's not fully matured or reached its time. So now he says it's only temporary. meaning that like sealing this gate, closing out that gate, is only a temporary solution. And then we see this happen. And then Toneri like grabs this, what people call this a crack in space-time. I think it's more like a portal that the fucking Otsutsuki are trying to use to get to Toneri with, but I'm not sure. Excuse me. Then he says, in time, the gods will descend upon this land. Okay, so let me raise the volume there because I think it's important to listen to what he said. 1 sec. Here we go. So he said, Izure Kamigami wa. Kamigami, you know, you'll probably recognize one part of that, which is kami. Kamigami is like the plural. It's, I think it basically refers to like a pantheon of gods or multiple gods. He's saying that like deities will descend from the heavens and will eventually arrive on quote unquote Earth. Right? Now notice that he specifically uses the term kami or kamigami, right? He doesn't say like celestial bodies, celestial objects, meteors, comets, whatever. Like he specifically calls them kamigami. They'll descend upon this land. Okay. And now there is a direct switch over to another point of view from someplace else. So that, again, like Kuleshov effect, right? There's a direct connection between what Toneri is saying about the Kamigami and the characters that we're about to see. Now, notice, I thought this was kind of funny, that we actually do see another like thing. It's very, very quick, so I don't know if you noticed it, but we do actually see in a scene with two fucking Otsutsuki just kind of sitting and hanging around, we do actually see a quote-unquote comet, or more likely a shooting star, come through here, right? So that's worth noting. I don't think it's like this to me looks like much more clearly like a meteor because it doesn't actually have the two like little trails, but you know, who knows where this is in the universe. Just like a nice little detail, right? Okay, so you've probably seen this screenshot before of Toneri, of Momoshiki sitting in quote-unquote his dimension. I disagree that it's his dimension. I think this is very clearly a planet that he has harvested, but we're not going to get into that right now. Just in case you're curious, in case you were wondering, this is where the screenshot comes from. It's the Boruto anime, and it's episode 15, and it's at the end. So there you go. Okay, so the camera pans down. We see Momo over here chowing down on some fruit. He's just harvested this planet, it looks like, because then he begins to say, finally an adequate harvest. So this implies that he has been going around for some amount of time. He has, you know, attempted to procure a harvest, and it's taken him some amount of time to do so. Perhaps he has failed at doing so. He's found other harvests, but they haven't been adequate, and now he's happy with this particular harvest. Okay, so it looks like he drained this planet of his chakra using god trees. Not 100% sure how that lines up with what we learn about the god trees in the manga. Like, did he plant... Because you'll see in a minute, there's, like, all these towering pillars of trees, right? Did he bring fucking 20 Ten-Tails with him, or however many? And like, I don't know if that makes sense, but anyway, he has just completed the harvest. Okay, so now we see what looks very, very, very similar to a Kamui portal appear in the air, and out of it comes, I don't know why it's distorted like that, sorry, out of it comes Kinshiki, his companion. What Kinshiki says, so Momoshiki says, how did it go? And Kinshiki says, I found tears in Kaguya's world. So what it seems like here, given that Momoshiki is asking him, how did it go, is that Kinshiki and Momoshiki were together at some point. Kinshiki had to go do a thing, and now he's reporting back to Momoshiki. The thing that he supposedly had to do, I believe, is to go and search Kaguya's world, to go look for her. And well, I guess it's fine to explain this now. As you may recall, if you are familiar with the war arc and all that stuff and its conclusion, Kaguya came to Earth. She planted a god tree, and in Boruto it's clarified that she showed up with Ishiki, and her mission, what she was supposed to do, was she was supposed to plant the god tree and then harvest the chakra fruit and then give that to the Otsutsuki, right? Either to Ishiki, or she was supposed to return with it, probably more just like give it to Ishiki. She decided not to. She rebelled against Ishiki. She ate the fruit, which she wasn't supposed to do. And then at some point, maybe not in this order, she also fell in love with or hooked up with a dude on Earth and gave birth to Hagoromo and Hamura, right? So Kinshiki Momoshiki is about to describe this as betraying the clan. So it seems like after a certain point of not hearing back from Kaguya, the Otsutsuki got suspicious, and they were like, we need to go check on why we haven't heard from her, because we were supposed to hear back from her and we just haven't, and something's fucked up. I do think it's kind of interesting that they refer to it as Kaguya's world. I think the community has settled on, and maybe even Amado says it specifically, that Ichiki was supposed to be the superior one. Um, but they don't call it Ishiki's world, right? They call it Kaguya's world. So I wonder what the deal is there, like if this was a retcon or whatever. But anyway, without overanalyzing that, I say, I found tears in Kaguya's world. Moving on. The space curvature exceeds 16. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but basically, again, sorry if I'm getting some of this wrong, but space curvature, so like we are all in space, obviously. Space can be thought of as kind of like a fabric that connects everything in the universe. And that fabric will curve based on matter or energy. So if there's a bunch of stuff in a given place, whether that be solid matter like a planet, or whether that be energy, that will cause the space around it to warp. So something happened. Something happened at some point in Kaguya's world. Given that that thing happened, it caused a crack to appear, and now Kinshiki was sent on a mission, or decided to go for whatever reason, to go explore Kaguya's world. And when he got there, he looked around and he found some cracks, and he found that the curvature exceeds 16. So I think that there's a direct parallel here between what happened with Nue and Toneri and what happened with Kaguya. In her world specifically, which granted could mean the Earth, but could also mean one of her individual dimensions, an event happened there, which I personally interpret to be like Kaguya's fight with the other shinobi, but you can have a different opinion on that. The amount of energy that was released in that fight caused cracks to appear. It was so dramatic that it caused some kind of a break in the barrier between the spaces, caused those cracks. And therefore the like the seams between those spaces were damaged, or if you want to say the fabric of space-time is damaged. I don't know. It's not like super clearly explained, but anyway, the default normal value that the Otsutsuki regard as like not particularly noteworthy seems to be 10, because anything over that is worth their interest, and then they have to go check it out. So this event that happened, or whatever caused the space curvature to change in Kaguya's world, exceeded 16, and that is, a significant deviation. So they need to go investigate it and figure out what's going on. The reason I think that it's Kinshiki is likely talking about one of Kaguya's dimensions, probably the root time space instead of Earth, is because they don't go to Earth right away after this. Urashiki has to show them where it is. So they start rifling through Kaguya's dimensions separately, as opposed to going straight to Earth, right? So if they wanted to investigate Earth and Kinshiki had just been there, it would be really weird for them to then like start going to the other dimensions instead, especially since as soon as Momoshiki sees that sees the Earth, he's like, okay, fuck, we gotta go there now. I want that chakra fruit. So that's why I think that Kinshiki is speaking about one of Kaguya's dimensions specifically. Probably the root time space, but who knows, right? So Momoshiki turns around and says, we were supposed to wait to harvest that world. Okay, so they were... It seems to me almost like they had been told to like leave the planet alone and just wait until Kaguya or Ishiki or whoever was done, and then like go to collect their fruit or whatever. But something changed, and they were like, I think like, fuck, we haven't heard back in a while, we better go check on this, right? So they decide to go check it out. They find the anomaly. This is where Kinshiki explains, like, okay, based on the number, we have to report it immediately, we have to go deal with this. And then Momoshiki thinks it's because she chose to disobey and that it's out of character. But then he considers, like, maybe there's something else going on. He gets suspicious. So now he says, Kinshiki, make preparations to depart. Okay, so technically speaking, we could stop here. I want to talk about a couple more things, but the reason why it doesn't make any sense to me for Urashiki to be the comet is that Toneri was specifically said, hey, I see a comet and then this bad thing is going to happen. And then the bad thing happened, and that bad thing was Nue. And he directly talked about Nue to fucking Boruto, and then that resolved. there was like a whole thing that happened that then got closed off, and then he said, okay, that's done, and now something else is going to happen later that we need to worry about. And then, after he said we need to worry about this later, we cut to Momoshiki and Kinshiki. They have not yet decided that they need to go, like, thoroughly investigate Kaguya's whereabouts or whatever. Apparently, like, Kinshiki just went to check, went, like, snooping around, but they haven't actually done their full investigation yet. And Momoshiki's like, make preparations for departure. So, if that comet is Urashiki, there doesn't seem to be any connection to what he's doing flying around in Cancer. But if not, it makes more sense if it's not, because this sequence, no, fuck, this event here, which happens after the comet, is the thing that ultimately like pushes the Otsutsuki to then start going and looking for shit. So it makes more sense, I think, that Urashiki would have been launched off to go and investigate the Earth and the moon and stuff like that after this. So it doesn't make sense for the comet to be there. It would just have to be like a random coincidence. Like Toneri was looking up at the stars. He saw a comet. That comet happened to be Urashiki. He was like, oh, I was expecting Urashiki to fly through the sky at this time. And I know that when he does that, then Nue will show up. It's like really weird. I don't really see how that makes any sense. Not to mention that if Urashiki is actually in the Cancer constellation, like we talked about last time, the nearest star to us in Cancer is, I think it's Beta Cancri, I forget, but it's like 38 to 40 light years away. So the light that Toneri is seeing is 40 years old. And we could say, okay, well, maybe the camera was zoomed in to be closer to Urashiki, but I think we demonstrated, based on using that pink star as an anchor point, that that's not the case, right? Like, it's basically the same POV. We're basically seeing things from like slightly above Toneri's head. So no, what we are seeing would be light. If it is in Cancer, it would be light that's 40 years away, at least. Now, I don't think that that really matters, because I think it's very clear that that comet is like, it's close enough to a sun to be, well, if it's, I guess if it's not really a comet, then that wouldn't matter. But like, basically, like, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for that comet to be like so exponentially bright and moving that fast at that distance away. Like, there's too many weirdnesses that emerge from that, as far as I'm concerned. It makes much more sense that it's just a comet and that it's passing like close to the Earth, or even more so, it's like a meteor and it's just like streaking overhead, right? But let's go with comet, because he does say Hokiboshi, and that does have a specific meaning that comes up later. So hopefully that makes some sense. Hopefully the picture's starting to become a little bit more clear. But that being said, there's still a couple more clips to review. Probably not all of these. I think one of them is a duplicate. But yeah, let me catch up on chat real quick. One sec. Okay, so Dr. Strangle says, I know which omen I would want. Return to crab. Yeah, we're all returning to crab anyway. Saria, did you say something about the rhythm? Oh, that'd be the best way to do it. And then I will fix this for next time. Sorry, guys. Okay. It's showing up in OBS, but for some reason it's just not showing up in stream. Okay, anyway. Sorry, let's get back to it. Seeing how the trees are cut, maybe cutting them can eventually turn it back into a jubi. That's an interesting point. So you think, like, yeah, like they can kind of grow sprouts, and we never know. I don't think we're ever told how like new Ten-Tails is formed. Maybe like seeds of Ten-Tails can sprout out of the tree or something like that. I do like the idea that the Ten-Tails are also kind of like a form of plant that can like bud and grow and break off. Yeah, test failed. Oh, wait, now it's showing up. What the hell? Okay, well, whatever. Sorry, I won't worry too much about it. So maybe, yeah. Dr. Strangle says, I'm very agnostic about whether or not the dimensions are different universes or just far-off locations in the main Naruto dimension. I think this, yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I think this is very clearly a planet that they just went to and they harvested chakra from. Like, they went here and they conquered it, just like they're about to do to Earth, or they're trying to do to Earth, and they siphoned the chakra and they made a chakra fruit, and that's it, right? I think in the novel, we get that phrase that, like, Momoshiki had created this dimension or whatever. And that particular dimension is a place that he goes to drain Naruto's chakra. And so people have said, like, yeah, I was about to say that, but I didn't know how awkward that would make me sound, so I avoid saying that one smart. Um, but yeah, like, if that particular, uh, also just realizing that like these god trees are probably pretty small because, or like kind of shitty because why did like one god tree was enough to siphon all the chakra that Kaguya needed from Earth, so like, why did they need to make so many of them? I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, it's possible that the dimension that he went into to siphon Naruto's chakra in the versus Momoshiki arc was actually a place that he created. It says so in the novel. That being said, I I think that despite that, I prefer the interpretation that it's just another planet that he found and he like marked the location and so he can just go there. Like it seems really weird to me that he would create a planet and then drain the energy from that planet and then leave it there and then just bring people there to siphon their chakra from. Like something doesn't quite add up about all that. And like in the anime and the movie, I think in the manga as well, there's already a tree there when he gets there. So this is a place that like he would have had to have created it just to like drain the chakra from it to put the tree. Like I don't think that makes sense. I think it makes more sense that that's just another planet and that the novel is the outlier. And given like just going off of what Miss Anne said, that like the script is supposedly, and I believe her perspective on this, that like that was the initial script for the movie, right? So the novel was the first thing that was written, but then they changed things in the movie. They cut certain things out or moved things around. So unfortunately, like the movie just contradicts what is in the novel to a certain extent, and then the anime and manga as well have their own contradictions. So it might have been that like this place was initially supposed to be a place where that Momoshiki created, right? But like in the novel, if I remember correctly, uh it's like Naruto is bound to just a pillar. Like he's just tied up to something, but it's never specified to be a god tree. And uh Momoshiki like draining the chakra from the star, quote unquote, and everything like that, that is in reference specifically to him conquering Earth and draining chakra from Earth. So a Naruto Earth. Um but in the movie, in the other versions of the story, it's a tree that Naruto gets bound to. So I think they changed it from it being like a like one of Kaguya's dimensions type thing to just being a planet that they conquered. But personally, and this is where I think probably quite a few people will disagree with me, and that's okay. My headcanon is that Kaguya's dimensions are just planets. Like I don't actually think that that works like evidence wise. That's why I say it's headcanon because I don't think it's fully supported by evidence. But like I just personally struggle to believe, like I don't think Kaguya is a genius or anything, but it would be really really stupid for her in my opinion to just make six planets and then just leave them there and do nothing with them, and like other than bringing like, do you really need six entire fucking dimensions, let alone full universes with stars and galaxies and everything, black holes, like just to bring somebody there to fight them, or just to have like a shitty little castle on a mountain in a place that's covered with lava and really sucks and nobody would ever want to be there? Like I don't know, it something doesn't add up. It feels more natural to me that like, especially given her like the Otsutsuki's um constant like desire to devour and increase and evolve and hoard energy, I don't know why she would do that. But that like that's my own incredulity, right? That's my own opinion. I think you can make reasonable arguments that she created those spaces um just without like with some open-ended questions. Like I'll leave it that way. Um, let's see. Slimy Orb says, seeing how Obito was able to split off the Jubi and have a portion become a divine tree, it seems that if the split happened correctly, you could have multiple trees. That's a very good point. Yeah, it's like I wonder if they're kind of like a monoculture, right? Like I might be getting this wrong, but I'm pretty sure that modern day bananas that like are all essentially genetically not identical, but like pretty much like there's just one strain or species of a banana that has been cultivated, and like every banana you have is like that is from that same strain, right? There's things like that where we have selected a particular strain of a given plant and just continued to use the seeds from it, or like to like brand, I don't know what the term for it is. It's like whatever the opposite of grafting would be, I guess. Help somebody who knows anything about plants. But yeah, like you take pieces off of that and you plant those pieces and then it grows, right? So yeah, I'm not a botanist, but I think that's how it works. In the novel it says isekai. Okay. Okay, yeah, that's a good point. That means like it's like the alternate world, right? Like the genre isekai. I think there's a few different terms that get used, so I would need to go back and look at Miss Ann's work there. I did say the fruit are poor. Oh, you mean in regards to? Sorry, where did he say the fruit are poor? I forget. Momoshiki probably took out more powerful alien beings there. I would like to think so. Yeah, I think that's probably what happened here. I think he confirmed it. Okay, I would like to know where that confirmation is for sure. That'd be great to have. Sorry says, why do they need to make so many of them? I mean, if you could make multiple trees that give PEDs. What's PED? To kill your enemies, wouldn't you? I would. I'd be, I'd be turtles. I'd be turtles, but a lesbian who only acts when annoyed. I admit I have no idea what you mean, but I would love for you to elaborate. Dr. Strangle says it really seems to me he's talking about the planet, but whether or not it's a planet in the main universe or a planet in an alternate universe, they consequentially are the same. Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's a good way of reconciling the different options. Also, just realizing that the actual display is not showing up here, so let me fix that. Hey there, Sora, how's it going? Thank you for joining us this evening. Kaguya did have a dimension where she recharged her chakra. Oh yeah, you're referring to like the root time space? Yeah, I think it makes sense for that to be something that she made. Like, I don't really think that there's any strong argument against it. I just, when you put it together with everything else we know about the Otsutsuki, it seems weird to me. But I think you can also look at it as like, maybe when Kishimoto wrote that stuff, he was leaning more into the, like he hadn't like mapped it all out for power scalers, right? Like he was like Kaguya is based on a character, like a pre-existing character, right? So he might have just been like, okay, we're going to people are just gonna get that I'm referencing something that's basically a deity, right? Like the whole like rabbit in the moon thing is also something that comes from Japanese culture. It's a thing that will be more understood intuitively over there. And he was basically like, it's a god, okay? Don't worry where she came from. Don't overthink it. Um, and and like her chakra is just absolutely insanely higher than, Sasuke looks at her and he's like incredulous to the idea that she like can even exist, and then she gets exponentially stronger. So it's like one of those things where it's like maybe just like don't worry about it. Like she can create planets, she can create dimensions, like whatever. And then they try to like rectify it and clarify it going into Boruto, but it's still one of those things where it's not necessarily designed to be power scaled necessarily. Like it might not be like fully explained. I do think that when you set out on a mission to establish something from a power scaling context, you are kind of hoping, if not assuming, that the story was designed in a way that is compatible with that kind of tool set being used. But just some people probably disagree with this, but just reading through early One Piece, I got to the like the first 10 or 20 chapters. That character Buggy is introduced, and he ate the chop chop fruit, and because of that he can sever his limbs and basically just like exist as a chop chop man with all of his different body parts floating around and stuff. Did Oda at the time when he wrote that have a specific biological explanation for how his organs still function when his body is chopped up? Is there a diagram somewhere in some guidebook that explains the connections between his cells being maintained at a distance, or did he just think it would be fun to put that in there, right? So like I think it would be fun to have a discussion about hypothetically how you could make yourself be able to remotely control your limbs, but that doesn't mean that like even if we came up with a real world analog, an explanation for how that could work in reality, that doesn't necessarily mean that Oda himself was thinking about that when he designed that. And so we're doing a bit of projecting of assumptions in order to engage in the sport that we're doing, if that makes sense. Let's see, they said the fruit was poor in terms of the divine tree fruit of the planet they're on. Oh, okay, gotcha. I think I just missed that. Sorry about that. Sorry, I said. Oh, One Smart said when I said he confirmed it, I was talking about the tree Naruto was stuck on being made from bees chakra. Oh no, I didn't think that the tree itself was made out of bees chakra because if I remember the scene correctly, they pin B against just like a rock on Earth. And they put a bunch of chakra rods through him, and then they drain his chakra there. And then, yeah, and then like Momoshiki looks in his palm, and there's only a few little, like 3 little red cinnabar pills, and he's like, "Really, fucking, is this all we got? Okay." And then Kinchiki's like, "Well, there's a bigger one over there," and then they fly away. I think all of that happens on Earth. So the tree that we see later, I don't think is related to Killer Bee, personally. PEDs or performance enhancement drugs. Turles, right? I thought you said turtles. Turles is a Dragon Ball villain who created a tree that gave him the fruit to make him stronger. Was that the one that TFS did as like the Christmas tree of doom or whatever? I think I know what you're talking about there. And it could also be fun to kind of talk about the parallels with Elden Ring, right? Which of course parallel the like Ganishka tree in Berserk. He's Dark Goku. No, wait, taking off pieces to grow new plants is vegetative reproduction. Vegetative reproduction. Cool, yeah. I want to make sure that I'm not misleading you guys about that bananas thing, but I remember talking to my partner about this, that there's some plant and like that, like a fruit that we eat that's like really common. The Christmas tree of might. Okay, cool, yeah. I was thinking of vaguely along the right lines. But there's some plant like that, and there was a new disease that was spreading like wildfire and causing this plant to die off extremely quickly. And people were like, if we don't cure this, we're gonna lose all of it, like because everything is just this one species and it's clearly effective on it. And so like this could be the end of this fruit because there's no backup strain, right? Like we put all of our eggs in one basket on this, and like we're fucked if we don't figure this out. So don't take my word for it. I think it was bananas. But obviously like we have plantains, right? But like the modern banana, I think is just like one thing. But again, like do your research. Kishimoto watched a filler DBC movie and was like, write that, write that down. That's fucking awesome. I love that. Okay, so we have a few more Toneri related things to talk about. So let me make sure that this is still up. Okay, let's go to the next one. So that is in the end of episode 15, what we just saw. And as far as I could find, going through all the episode synopses and like scanning through the episodes and stuff, also what is up with Sarada's face? I hope she's okay. She doesn't look okay. The Otsutsuki and Toneri don't show up again until much later. So this is episode, I want to say 37, but let me check the notes real quick. This is, I think, one second. Why is this acting like this? One sec, sorry. Now I lost everything. One sec. I'm fixing it. Okay, there's that, and there's that, and there's this. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. So, yes. You know what? I'm just gonna fucking put this in the other window because it keeps glitching out on me. Okay. So, okay, so this is from episode 34, sorry, 34, Night of the Shooting Stars. And now the Amegakure background is gone. Fucking hell. I really gotta change that fucking background. It looks so weird. I just made that really quick when I was we were talking about like KCM mode like a year ago, and I needed like some kind of a background, and so I just like picked that because it was the chapter that was open. But I realized that having like Naruto wincing with the Bichu bomb there is like kind of sus. So I might want to make a better background there. But yeah. Anyway, so Night of the Shooting Stars, episode 34. Let's bring this back up, and let's see if we can make some progress here. That's someone transformed into Sarada. They aren't good at yeah, this is Naruto like trying to get closer to his son, transformed into Sarada, and just like still isn't very good at it. Sorry, says I honestly don't know. I don't want much abridged Dragon Ball because I saw it was really becoming a bad influence on the fandom. Oh, that sucks. And it made people drastically mischaracterize the cast. I stopped after the Saiyan saga. Yeah, so it's funny. My previous partner and I had like a whole. We really loved the series to the point where we You're probably gonna cringe, but whatever. We were adorable, so just deal with it. We used to call each each other Team Two Star because we were both big fans, and we both were a team, and we liked it, and it was good. It was really cute. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. But then we kind of let it alone for a while, and then went back to it, and then we got to that point in the Saiyan saga where one of the characters, I think Vegeta, kills what's his name? Uh, the like bisexual ish dude who transforms into a monster that Bulma has a crush on. I can't think of his name right now. He's one of the Ginyu Force, or not the Ginyu Force. He's one of the one of Frieza's henchmen, right? Zarbon. Zarbon. He gets killed by Vegeta, and as Vegeta blows him up, he says "freaky alien genotype," which, if you like take the first letter of each word, you know what it stands for. And this ties into a previous joke before from oh yeah, Zarbon. Thank you, Sora. Sora. I eventually got there. um, but yeah, it's like I get what they were doing, and I know that some of the staff were queer on that project, and I get that it's related to something that Krillin said before. But there's something that just really got under my skin about somebody making a homophobic joke and then killing a gay coded or like a queer coded character. It's like it was kind of gross. There was a few things like that in the series that are like hard to go back to that hadn't aged well. But as I understand it, like some of the staff have come forward and said like, yeah, we were younger, we were edgy, we don't stand by that, and they have been more like queer friendly and supportive since then. So I'm willing to like let it slide, so to speak. It's just I've been hesitant to show my current partner because it's just like I feel like there's a few moments that I have to like pause and explain or apologize for. I would really love to be able to share the final confrontation with like Cell and Gohan and Goku because I think like that was super well done. And there's some moments that like Gohan saying like I hate this, I hate the feeling of the pounding in my ears and like the pain in my hands and the taste of blood in my mouth. I hate this, right? Like there's so many cool like quotable moments, both funny and sincere, that I would like to share. It's just like there's a couple of things that don't have a great aftertaste. Eventually got better characterization, but it's not always accurate. That's true. How about Team 3 Star? What? Well, we're a team, and there's three of us, and the Dragon Balls have stars on them. Team 3 Star. It's yeah, it's a product of its time. Yeah, I mean, like that's actually a good a nice little sort of fourth wall breaking joke almost from Krillin there. Sora, just watch the actual show. That's a good point. I find that the original show itself, though, like I watched some of it when I was a kid, but I much prefer the manga because the pacing of the show just felt really off to me. Like I would get home from school, and at the time, like I grew up pretty much like never having access to TV beyond just using my TV as like a VHS player, right? Or like a video game player. Like we just didn't have TV. It just wasn't part like TV channels, right? The only two channels that we got were like the local news, MTV, and then we got like Sky News when we were in Italy. So like the Sky channel would show news during part of the day, and then it would show Cartoon Network during another part of the day, and would include Dragon Ball. So I'd like run home from school, and I would be so excited to see what would be happening on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z, and then it would just be like a lot of very very slow panning shots of characters kind of not doing anything, and then like a 5 minute sequence of a character like Don Makuing and just like firing fucking like energy projectiles, then 5 minutes of dust like slowly settling while characters panted and breathed really heavily, and then like obviously the character was unharmed, and then the episode was over. What'll happen next time? Like there were so many times where I was just like champing at the bit, and I was thrilled to get a chance to experience this universe, and then nothing fucking happened. But I could just like buy the comics and just like binge them, right? So, um, yeah, just due to my like eager, spoiled, dopamine addicted little brain, the comics wound up being better for me. And for the record, I didn't skip OG Dragon Ball. I picked up like a Dragon Ball Z comic, and it was like well into the series. It was like a rerun, right, where they were doing volume releases. And it was like really late. And then I said, oh shit, this is fucking awesome. And so I went back to the first one, and I read all the way. I still have them somewhere. I should still have the full collection in Italian, but yeah. I mean, we need to let progressive edgelords live a little. Yeah. I mean, like, I was a fucking edgelord when I was younger. Like, don't get me wrong. I definitely sympathize. Just like now that I'm getting like I'm an old softy now, and it's like it's a little harder to deal with. But you know, whatever. Anyway, Borcho Sarada, episode 34, Night of the Shooting Stars. So, the whole plot of this episode is kind of like not really all that relevant, although it is a really sweet episode. Basically, all the characters collaborate together, including Nue. Like, Sumire is there, and she has Nue use a fucking chakra enhanced fishing rod to catch this fish, and then they all eat the fish together, and they're like, "Yay, this is a good fish!" And they have they just have like a little field trip together. Skip through all the happy, nice character building moments and sweet things to get to the sourness. Unfortunately, I don't think that there is actually a finished explanation to this that I could find. I'm not gonna know for sure until I watch like every episode of the anime, which I haven't done yet. But basically, like, we see these cracks and then we kind of don't really see them ever again. So I don't. There's a couple of different theories as to what could be happening here. One is what I thought was that like this is essentially the Otsutsuki like peering through and watching Toneri or trying to open up a portal to get to him or something like that. But the imagery of these cracks doesn't really correlate with the design of the portals and stuff that we see later. It also still leaves the question unanswered that Kinshiki said of like finding cracks in Kaguya's world. I think him mentioning that is sort of like priming us to fucking uh be thinking about these as the similar cracks or tears he calls them, right? So I think that just them being portals doesn't really add up. I think the better explanation is that something recently happened, or maybe an accumulation of things happened that led to so much chakra being used around these parts that it has started to fuck with the space curvature, leading to these cracks. But if that's the case, like if we advance forward a few more frames, I mean, like everything around Toneri seems like it's about to shake and shatter, right? It's like, you know, it's about to collapse all around him, but we don't see any more evidence of this later. Unless, actually, I think I figured it out maybe, but the explanation is really weird. I think this might actually be just foreshadowing him getting imprisoned by Urashiki. So we'll come back to this in a second, but I have a new idea. But yeah, like I think it's still unresolved, but let just put a pin in this, but pay very close attention to the design of like these parts of the glass. Notice how it's sort of like dark purplish blackish whatever, right? So just keep that in mind until we come back to this. Yeah, and notice like if we just try to like focus on that, look at how far gone this is, right? The entire like vision of the earth is distorted, it's like fully broken, but we don't really see that going forward. Another option is just that like Toneri has created some sort of a barrier around the earth, but the barrier is faltering, and as a result, or even around the moon or something like that, but it's faltering and he's just like not able to keep it up. So these cracks that Toneri is engaging with actually have nothing to do with space-time, and they are completely different from what Kaguya's tears are. This is just like a bubble that he put around the area to protect the Earth or something. Or a better explanation might be that it's just symbolism and shut the fuck up and just like, like maybe it's not meant to be taken literally. I don't know. I don't like that explanation, but maybe. So let's continue. Is this relevant? Okay, yeah, so this is just for some context. We probably don't need to watch all of this. The next time we see anything related to the Otsutsuki and all that is in episode, I want to say 51 or 52, where Sasuke is exploring the dimension owned by, previously owned by Kaguya, and you can see that he kind of comes through the portal. He lands in this snowy place, and yeah, he just starts exploring. So a part of the story, which is talked about a little bit in Scarlet Spring and then in the early versus Momoshiki arc, is that they kind of figured out that Kaguya was building an army of white Zetsu in order to, for some reason, and they're concerned that there might be some impending threat. They basically are like, if Kaguya is doing that, like if she needed that army, she clearly didn't need it to take care of human beings. Or she probably didn't think so. So why was she building that? And then they research it some more, and then Sasuke finds a scroll, and he comes to the conclusion that it was to build an army of White Zetsu to fight the Otsutsuki that are going to come after her. So at this point, he's still figuring that out. He's still exploring, and he shows up in the ice dimension. This is actually like the ice dimension that they were in before, where they fought at the end of fucking Boruto or Naruto, the main series, right? Now, Kinshiki and Momoshiki are in this dimension, and he does say something that's kind of interesting. I thought it would be just be a fool's errand, right? So he and fucking like Kinshiki and Momoshiki are exploring these places, and they don't even really seem to be very hopeful that anything will come of it. But now, by chance, coincidence, they happen to be at the same place as Sasuke at the right time. I think this is the next episode. I think this is episode 52. Probably not going to play. Oh, wait, no, this is where Urashiki shows up, so I will play that. But there's another thing. This is in like around that time. I'll look up the specific episode in a second. I think this is 53, 54. Just to say what Sasuke says. He reports back to Naruto and says he finally found it. The it that he's talking about is the scroll in Kaguya's dimension. Skip ahead a little bit. He finds this this building. He goes in. There's a statue of Kaguya there, right? And he finds the scroll, and then he's attacked by Momoshiki and Kinshiki, right? So what does he say? Her warped hunger for power, she tried to enslave the entire world. And then during that great ninja war, we were to seal her away, etc. She wasn't acting merely out of need for power. What was the true reason for her vigilance? Yeah, that was the stuff that I was talking about before. Been searching for the answer ever since. Then he gets attacked. We don't need to go through this whole fight, although it is cool. But it's not really the point of the stream. So they fight, have a cool fight. And then he gets away. Funny enough, Sasuke doesn't escape back to Earth, which I think is probably deliberate. He probably doesn't want to like lead them back there. But he uses the Amenote Chikara on Kinshiki, and then Momoshiki acknowledges this, and he says like, "Oh, it's a Rinnegan, huh?" And then yeah, oh Rinnegan, and then he asks him what he's searching for, and then so this is important, right? He is searching for Kaguya. He doesn't know where she is, and at this point they've been apparently going through, because remember, this is like 20, 30, 40, approaching the vicinity of 30-ish episodes, apart from the last, like when we saw Toneri saying that they'll eventually come, right? So they've been at this a while, probably weeks if not months. They've just been like searching through Kaguya's dimensions looking for her. They can't find her. They don't know where the fuck she is. So says, you don't know. She's no longer here. This comes as a surprise to them. Like, clearly Momoshiki like wasn't expecting to hear that. And so he wants to interrogate Sasuke to get the information from him. Right? Okay, and then they fight. Okay. What does he say? If this drags on, he'll be at a disadvantage. And then he goes into the portal. Funny enough, he actually decides to portal to one of Kaguya's other dimensions, right? I think this is the desert dimension as opposed to the root time space. But yeah, I think this is Kaguya's dimension. It's never confirmed, but it doesn't seem to be like going straight back to Earth. Now, that being said, I'm kind of out of order here because I wanted to mention that for the sake of the conversation. But before that, in a previous episode, we get the first appearance of Urashiki, right? So here we are on the moon. I think it would be great if we could identify the constellations or whatever, but just to kind of stay with the stay on pace, right? Let's go frame by frame. Let's see what happens. Okay, this is at the beginning of the episode. I'm going to skip ahead just a tiny bit. Okay, so here is Urashiki's appearance, right? Now, granted, he could potentially look different at different times, but I think it's worth noting that the appearance of Urashiki here is significantly different from the appearance of the comet. He has a much narrower profile compared to what we saw of the comet before. It's a different color, and he doesn't have the little plumes coming off of him. So, visually speaking, I am not seeing a connection between this and what we saw before. Okay, that being said, let's go and see. Like there is a little bit of a visual color difference, but it doesn't look anything like the comet to me anyway. Okay, so crashes on the moon. And here he is. There's our boy Urashiki. Feel Urashiki. I finally found you. Okay, so that to me is interesting. Him saying I finally found you. This implies that he was looking for Toneri, but it clashes with something that's about to come up. So keep this in mind. He was looking for Toneri. It took him quite a while. Toneri Otsutsuki. You finally appeared, Celestial Being. So I want to just make sure to play that so that you can hear the Japanese, so you know I'm not making that shit up about the name there. I'll play the whole thing. Right, so he says, Amatsubito, that is what I was talking about before. He's referring to Urashiki as Amatsubito, right? That we talked about the context for that before. It is kind of interesting that we see the shadows kind of extending, right? So anyway, they both start talking, and Urashiki acknowledges the term that Toneri is putting forth as like a formal term. So apparently, what he's saying here, what Toneri is saying here, is not oh, the celestial body has finally showed up. Awesome. He is specifically saying like, oh, thou who art from heaven, thine heavenly presence hath descended here. Like, that's the kind of language he's using. He's calling him, like, an esteemed, elite, divine person, right? It's a very specific term that means something very specific. It has nothing to do with, like, being a comet or an asteroid or anything else that's, like, an inorganic space thing. It is a term for a person, and specifically within their clan, it's a term that has a specific rank and a noble profile associated with it, right? So, he talks about the fate of the Otsutsuki. Now, this is interesting that he says that he thought the Otsutsuki's fate would end with him, but he also seems to be aware of the Otsutsuki arriving, so that seems like a contradiction. I haven't quite reconciled that yet. Main family Otsutsuki clan doesn't feel that way. Yeah. They exist. Why did they forsake us for 1,000 years? So interestingly, it seems that despite the fact that he was planning ahead for the other Otsutsuki to come, yet at the same time he seems to think that the main family is dead, right? That seems to be what he's implying here. So I want to go look at the Japanese because there seems to be something silly here. But if this is the case, then Toneri definitely didn't think that the comet was Urashiki, because if he thought that the rest of the Otsutsuki were dead, then, well, but that doesn't line up with him saying that Kamigami were going to descend from the heavens. So something weird there with the translation, I think, or something that I'm just not understanding. Anyway, this is the most important thing, right? He says, Mitemashityo, right? He says, we saw it all. The incident with the woman with the Byakugan was quite unfortunate. You endured such humiliation, and yet you still risk your life for that planet. I must hand it to you. However, this means that you're betraying the clan. You may believe that you made the first move by doing something to that woman's son. So he's talking about, but that was very hastily prepared. So that is, that's Boruto that he's talking about. You speak as if you know everything, but you never made yourself known until today. What do you know about the people of this planet or this planet? Okay, so there's some very important context there that goes by very, very quickly. So let's just review. So Urashiki knows everything that happened in the arc with fucking the fight on the moon in the last. So he saw all the events of the last. He knows everything that happened there. He also saw that the stuff that happened with Nue, and he saw that Toneri was fucking with Boruto, like gave him the powers. So Urashiki knows about Earth, and he knows about the moon, and he has for like years. Like, he's been aware of all of this shit for a long time, because he was watching everything that happened during the last, which I don't think that Boruto was born yet. So at least 10 years, 12 years, something like that. So Urashiki's been watching this and knows that, like, the general area that Toneri is in for a long time. Okay, so how do we reconcile that if Urashiki was supposedly flying through space, which, by the way, what a fucking idiot he was doing in the Cancer constellation looking for Toneri there. It is fucking stupid, but, like why would he be there unless he's really stupid? Just going on holiday in Cancer for some reason. Okay, So, with all that being said, he knows where Urashiki is. He knows at least where the planet, that he's near planet Earth, and he knows that like people there are like what he's doing, who he's involved with, etc., etc., etc. He can presumably see the stars in the background and shit like that if he can see Toneri on the moon. Okay, so, and he probably, this is harder to confirm, but I would imagine that the Otsutsuki also knew where Kaguya went to, but we'll get to that in a second because that's not 100% clear. So, how do we explain then why it took him so long to find Toneri? Well, the explanation is that he had to go look around on Earth and or around on the moon to find him. And the moon is kind of big inside, and there's a lot of shit in there. So it took him a while to find him because he had to like fucking fly around and find him. That's why. It's not because he had to fly through the vast expanse of space. He knew basically where he was. He just had to like actually physically find him when he got there, and that took him a while. Now you might think, oh, well, these are Otsutsuki who can fly at the speed of light, and they can go all over the place, and they're super super fast and whatever in Byakugan. Yeah, but like Kinshiki and Momoshiki have been spending months going through Kaguya's dimensions looking for any clue of what's been going on, right? So it's not like they're necessarily like really fast at searching through places. I think it makes much more sense that he just like took his time and didn't immediately find Toneri on the moon, had to go searching for him, which is why he said it took a long time. And that's consistent with the way that Momoshiki and Kinshiki act as well. So I will catch up on chat in just a second. I see the messages coming in, and I appreciate it. Let me just finish through this set of clips over here. Okay. So, says that is why we were dispatched, because they need to learn more about what's going on at the Earth. So he brings up this weird thing, this little black box that he then drops on the ground. Right? So I want to bring this up for a second. So what's interesting to me there is that I think that sound effect is the same sound effect as the shattering glass that we heard from before. It sounds very, very similar. I gotta lower the volume while they're talking. Pop it up again real quick. It sounds like the same kind of sound effect, but that's like playing in reverse. I want to look up the Palace of the Dragon King, right? So I don't think this ability. Yeah, let's listen to that sound effect real quick. It sounds very similar to what was happening before. And it also, to me, visually speaking, looks like the coloration of those cracks that we were seeing. So I don't really know how to fully explain this, but I think maybe what's happening here is something that's like sort of Doctor Who related, where because Toneri in the future winds up getting put in this weird fucking time prison, that like that messes with his timeline to some extent, and then the cracks that he's seeing are actually like him in the future being imprisoned in those cracks, something like that, right? Or like he trying to break out, trying to fight out against his imprisonment. Now I don't think that that is a great explanation in full. I just think that like sonically and visually and thematically we're supposed to draw a connection between the fact that he is like frozen here, and then there's like these shards and cracks that have this like icy visual and sound effect to them. But that, like, again, that's like my hypothesis, right? I don't think it's like worth fully in investing in just yet, but I do think that there's some kind of like a thematic thing going on there that we should pay attention to. Anyway, dickhead Urashiki moves away. Don't recognize any of the constellations there. Looks up at Earth. Okay. So let me catch up on chat real quick because I think we're almost done with this section, and there's only a couple more things to mention. So yeah, let me see. One Smart says, I mean, we need to let progressive. Oh, yeah, yeah. Pretty sure they were just evidence Kaguya hadn't done her job, so Toneri was just trying to keep the signs to a minimum to delay the arrival of the other Otsutsuki. I like that approach, actually. I do really like the idea that it was basically like him trying to stall them and to keep them from kind of like finding out what's going on. But that being said, I feel like it's really it it's weird to me then that like they were able to apparently see through and watch everything that was happening so casually before. So there's something there that still doesn't add up for me. I'm not saying that you're wrong necessarily. It's just like it feels like something's missing to put all the pieces together. Dr. Strangle says, "Don't all these scenes feel like filler?" Um, Sort of, but if you look at Urashiki's page on the Naruto wiki, according to the wiki, he was one of the Otsutsuki that were originally designed. Like he was supposed to be in the manga or in the movie or whatever, and Kishimoto already had like sketches of him ready to go, but they cut him due to time constraints. So the idea that like, and also like Momoshiki, Kinshiki, and Urashiki are all based on characters from I think Shinto, but it could just be like other legends. Um, and so I think that he specifically envisioned them as a trio from the get go, and then things just kind of changed. One thing that I do kind of agree with Sage on, or at least I like the phrasing, is the idea that the anime actually tries to repair some of the ideas that got lost or broken in the manga. That doesn't mean that they're the same continuity and timeline, but I think it does lend an air of authenticity to the anime, where it doesn't feel like fan fiction, right? It feels like it is something that is crafted, if not to have the same exact sequence of events, which it doesn't, but to overall still fit the profile, I guess. Like it feels like they're kind of like if you compare what happened in the 2016 um rendition of Berserk to the manga, it's like awful, right? It's like some of the things are still there, but like there's very very significant differences. Or if you compare like the live action Avatar: Last Airbender to the original animated series, that shit is like night and day fucking different. But if you compare the comics to the to ATLA, they're very like in lockstep, if that makes sense. We saw it all seems very different than what we get with Momoshiki. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Well, I see where you're coming from with the filler. I don't feel the same, but I definitely see where you're coming from. If not Comet, then why vaguely Comet shaped? Checkmate atheists. Yep, no, I have to concede here. I have to turn in my atheism card over that. I agree. Why stand on business is a very good question. I don't think Ura actually has a good or Toneri has a good action for answer for that. Urashiki doesn't tell Momoshiki everything. Yes, that's probably true. And there's one more clip to review, I think, that's important about that. One Smart says, I remember having to explain how Kinshiki noticed curves in Kaguya's world and they end up looking in the wrong dimensions. Yeah, do you remember what your explanation was for that? I'm sorry to make you repeat yourself, but can you, like, did I kind of capture what you, like, how you feel about that? Dr. Strangle says, yeah, because if you told him anything important, it would affect canon scenes, which filler isn't supposed to do. I gotcha, yeah. Let's talk about that again in a sec when we come to that other clip I wanted to go over. Urashiki is a smug scout archetype. It makes sense for him to sprinkle small lies, like using the royal we, knowing he didn't fill in his team. That's a possibility, yeah. I don't have any objection to that. I think you would get pushback in a debate context, but, like, honestly, fuck it, the people who supposedly gatekeep the understanding of the series behind the debate tactics and stuff like that are the ones making the worst arguments and spreading the misinformation. Like, we don't have to adhere to debate rules to understand a fucking shonen battle manga, and I'm frankly kind of fucking tired of trying to pander to that perspective. So yeah. Oh, hey there, Walkie Talkie. How you doing? Now that Kamui isn't here. Oh, sorry. So, is it safe to assume that when I see Walkie Talkie podcast that it's Ood rather than Kamui? Because I always say like you guys because I never know like which one of you is talking specifically. But anyway, it's good to see you. Thanks again for the chat earlier this week. It was super fun. Definitely happy to come on again. Walkie Talkie says now that Kamui isn't here, pick sides. Just how I was saying, you were just as right as the when you were right, you were right. the things that you said that were right were correct and definitely accurate. I would say that compared to you, Kamui was right about the things he was right about, but he wasn't wrong about the things that he was right about. He wasn't right about the things that you were right about unless he was also right about those. So at the end of the day, yes, the answer is yes. Usually. Okay, gotcha. Dr. Stangle says that is in the trivia section of the wiki. It has no source. That's fair. That's fair to be skeptical of. I think they do include the screenshot though, so I guess I just swallowed it. But absolutely feel free to be skeptical of it. I would want to look into the source. You're very right to call that out. Okay, so let's see. This is the okay. We went over that one, right? So I think this is next one. Oh yeah. So this comes after. This is like episode 53 or 54, and this happens so after Urashiki has confronted Toneri and after Sasuke has met up with encountered Momoshiki and Kinshiki. Okay, so lava dimension. So they've already encountered Sasuke. They found out that Kaguya is dead, or not there anyway. He was kind of vague with that, right? And so they leave the ice dimension and now they are fucking around in the lava dimension for some reason. Let's see what happens. Nice little. This is the like again like why exactly was Kaguya okay? Like why did she make this like spiral on a precipice somewhere in a fucking doom level like to just come here and sulk? Like what's the point of this? Anyway, but honestly, this structure is probably hers, right? At least because here's the statue of her. But did she make a statue of herself? Was it a worshiper of hers? I do kind of like the idea that maybe she like subjugated this planet and then they revered her as a god and that they put a statue up here for her. But I mean, like, who the fuck wants to live on this planet anyway? So it's kind of weird. Okay, is this one bad too? It seems so. So they're looking for her scrolls. They pick it up. It disintegrates. Not one of Kaguya's scrolls remain. So I think it's also possible that Kaguya was just like either doing research or collecting data or leaving notes or something that like if they couldn't find because like very clearly like she left information about the White Setsu, so she probably had other data that they would want even if they couldn't find her, but they're all just like crumbling and shitty and it doesn't work. So Momo's like clearly pissed. Urashiki shows up. We don't actually know how he gets there, but what's kind of funny is that he says, "Are you still here?" Which to me indicates that they've been searching through this area for quite some time. I don't know if he specifically means the lava place versus just Kaguya's dimensions in general, but again, I think this kind of goes to reinforce the idea that they take their time, like two Otsutsuki working together, potentially knowing that like well, I don't know how much they know about these spaces at all, actually, so I shouldn't speculate. But like, it's taking them enough time that like their other fellow Otsutsuki is making fun of them. So it's not weird to me that it would also potentially take Urashiki some time to find what's his fuck. Also, Urashiki seems to be kind of like a little bit of a joker, a little bit of an asshole. So I don't know if we should take everything he says 100% literally. But yeah. How is the search for the chakra fruit going? Okay, so it seems like what happened here is that Momoshiki and Kinshiki decided we gotta go search for Kaguya and figure out what happened to her back on the planet in episode 15. And Momoshiki said, okay, we need to make preparations for this to happen. Part of the preparations involved somehow getting in contact with or sending a message to either like Central Command, who then sent a command to Urashiki, or sending a message to Urashiki. Urashiki's job was to figure out where the chakra fruit that Kaguya was supposed to give them went, what happened to it. And their job, Momoshiki and Kinshiki, was to search through Kaguya's dimensions to see if they could find her or some evidence of her. So, given that either Urashiki himself or the Otsutsuki in general knew about Earth and knew about like everything that happened there, Urashiki just like goes there, presumably through a portal. But you know, whatever. Maybe he flew there. Who the fuck knows? He just goes there though. Like he doesn't need to search for that coordinate. He just goes there to find them, right? Um, and then when he pokes around and he figures some stuff out, he then comes back and rejoins these two. But all of that happens after the events with Nue. Because remember, Toneri sees the comet in episode 8, and this is episode 50 something. So they wouldn't have started making preparations for the departure until the end of episode 15, way after that comet, at least like a few days after that comet showed up. So it doesn't make any fucking sense for Urashiki to be the comet for a variety of other reasons too, but also for this. Oh yeah, and then he says the fucking subtitles glitched out there. He says, "Are you still here? How is the search for the chakra fruit going? We meet after such a long time, and that's all you're interested in." So that to me is pretty interesting too. It's like they apparently haven't been in contact with one another for a while directly, and I don't know what that means. It could mean that like they contacted each other before they started the search, right? And it's taken Urashiki this long to kind of search through Earth and learn about stuff, or it could mean that like they haven't seen each other even before then, and they both got like orders at the same time from command or whatever, and it's a little bit vague to me. um okay, so he checked into that, right? So he has been doing the mission that he was given. He like just casually just opens a portal like with his hand on his hips. He like just looks at it, and then the region of space just opens up there. So then Momoshiki is saying that's the region Kaguya was in charge of, right? Or was it him or Kinshiki? One second. You gotta keep the volume low, of course, for copyright, but... Okay, that's definitely Momoshiki, right? So Momoshiki was not familiar with what the planet itself looked like. So like I saw that another comment, that, yeah, Urashiki knows more than the other Otsutsuki. Yeah, I think 100%, 100%. And so here he's kind of revealing that, right? But then, like, he just goes to... He's so eager to just go get the chakra fruit that he just goes through the fucking portal. And then, like, Ura gets pissed. It's also kind of funny that he calls him Momo-chan. Okay, this doesn't matter at all because it's, like, fiction or whatever, but, like, just, it's an interesting choice to me that if you listen closely here, you can hear the wind, right? You hear the sound of the wind, and you see the cloaks fluttering and stuff like that. So I think people say that like the Otsutsuki can definitely survive in the vacuum of space, and they use a screenshot from this to show that they can. Maybe they can, but not just based off of this screenshot, because this screenshot has wind. We can hear the wind and we can see the wind. So right now they are not just in fucking no atmospheric conditions. Again, this is not a totally fucking debunk of everything, but I've seen people use this scene to be like, well, we know that Urashiki can survive in the vacuum of space because look, right? And then they show a screenshot from this instead of playing the clip, and instead of actually pointing to the episode where you hear the sound effects and stuff. So I see some messages coming in. Let me check chat before I proceed here. I agree, says Walkie Talkie. Everything I said was right. Thank you for agreeing with me, especially over. That is not what I said. That is a very let's just say precise reading of what I said. But yes, I agree that everything that we agree on is something that is agreed on by us. I think we can agree to agree on that. You're welcome. Dr. Strangle says literally being a cut character that is put back into anime content is very filler feeling. Every source on the wiki page is Boruto episode number. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's I'm not gonna argue with you on that. Like I don't necessarily disagree with the idea that like this character is filler. I mean, like, look, he goes back in time with a fucking time traveling robotic turtle and fights Jiraiya and Kid Naruto. Like, I don't like put too much stock in Urashiki in the first place. I don't think he is very elegantly or perfectly meticulously woven into the fabric of this story, and frankly, I don't really care that much about his character or think that he has all that much relevance on the plot anyway. But because certain motherfuckers are using him as part of their bizarre scaling chains, I want to at least try to provide some context for who he actually is and how he actually fits in with the story, because apparently, like, how many times before this started to be a little bit more well known, how many times would you be in a conversation, and I saw this happen at Sage's Discord, I'm sure you remember, Dr. Strangle, like people would say Momoshiki is universal because Redshift Nebula, and then just post that fucking screenshot, and it would be impossible to figure out where it came from, because the person posting it didn't know because they just saw it somewhere, right? And they wouldn't be able to help you track it down either. Now with like reverse image search is pretty easy, and now that it's more like widespread, but people will just like take screenshots out of context, and they'll just like dump them and be like, look, fuck off, I win, right? And I'm sure you've run into that like hundreds of times. So yeah, unfortunately, I think I want to try to at least tip the scales a little bit in terms of making this information available so that people can find it. And then like I'm gonna write a blog post or maybe make a short or something compiling all this information as well in a way that doesn't take 2.5 goddamn hours to get through. um, but yeah, I think it's kind of up to us to try to help by putting making the information more accessible. If that makes sense. um Urashiki just knows more than them. They do check him a few times on how he speaks. Okay, yeah, let's keep an eye out for that too. Um, Oot says we somehow did manage to end up finishing that first topic, by the way. Cordially at that. Excellent. Okay, it took all the resistance in the world to get to that point. Yeah, I went to check on the stream later. Like I was like the next morning I think, and I saw you guys went for 7 hours, which is like, dude, I get to the end of a 5 hour stream and I feel like I am just bones and dust barely held together. I don't know how you guys managed to do those marathons, man, but like, hey, respect for it. It's really awesome that you were able to go for that long. Would have been nice if I had gotten to talk about Naruto with you. I saw you talking about Naruto with somebody else later on. Just saying. No, but seriously, like I did enjoy the conversation, and I think that like it'll be fun to regroup and talk about more stuff later. Just giving you a hard time, she could explain the Bijou situation. Oud says, "Oh yeah, I would apologize for not getting to talk much, but I feel like that's just gonna happen no matter what kind." Yeah. I'm familiar with the walkie-talkie ways, so no hard feelings at all. I think maybe in the future it would be helpful to identify some topics going in that we want to cover, just because, not that we have to stick to them or anything, but just because, like, I don't really know anything about balloons, and so, like, I checked my Steam, I have something like 40 hours in it, so I know something about it, but at the same time, I didn't quite have the context for that, and if you wanted to talk about that and you mentioned it beforehand, then I could have played a little bit and kind of caught up and stuff. So that it might be helpful just to keep things focused or not. It's just a suggestion. One smart said the only thing off about Urashiki is that he doesn't have a partner. Yeah. Well, I think that kind of goes into the whole them meant to be a trio thing that's implied by the wiki. But yeah, that's definitely an outlier for sure. Um, that's the stratosphere. Yep, that's a good point. Are you going to compare these scenes, the equivalent scenes of the movie manga? Yeah, Dr. Strangle, I think I actually have a document somewhere where I did that, where I wrote down, like, yeah, it was a stupid text document that I had that was, like, badly formatted, but basically I went through and I watched the movie, I read the novel, and I did the manga and the anime, and I, like, wrote down the differences that I noted for each thing. I think it could be useful to compile that. If you'd be interested in that, I'd be happy to, like, make a short or something. I will say though that the wiki also does a pretty good job of accumulating that, and there's some Reddit posts where other people have done something similar. So I'm probably not going to get everything. You can probably find that information elsewhere if you want it like right away. But I think it'd be a fun project at some point. The slip arc is great. Yeah, like I enjoyed watching it. I actually had a lot of fun with it. But it's like, you know, it might not be like like again going back to Buggy and the chop fruit. It might be one of those things where it might not be necessary to be super vigilant about it in terms of power scaling. Like maybe that's the thing where we have a little bit of fun with it and we just like, okay, this is the turtle dude, this is the time traveling dude, like whatever, right? I read in her shift until she nebulous. Oh my god, yes. Uh that's the best thing that I've read associated with that. So hey, you know what? That joke was good enough that it justifies the existence of the Redshift Nebula slander in the first place. So thank you for the concluding the redemption arc on that. I appreciate it. Sorry says it's up to us, me who has no stake in steering us. Yeah, please, no. Don't let me drag you down with me, dude. Get out of here before we pull you into more fucking like. Sorry, can you explain to us how literally everything in physics works, please, for no compensation, please, thank you. On our schedule, please, thank you. Anyway, let's continue. So you're saying that the chakra of the divine tree was dispersed and became 9 monsters. Okay, so Urashiki knows about the Biju and Momoshiki didn't. Like One Smart was saying. Call them tailed beasts. The ones who took these tailed beasts into their bodies are known as Jinchuriki. So Jinchuriki possess chakra, so he knows that term. So he's either been listening in or like went down to the planet to talk to people or to listen in on people or do some research. Probably more likely he's just been watching in somehow. For some reason, these Jinchuriki have tremendous chakra. They keep 10 tail beasts inside their bodies to amass chakra. The people of this region do very amusing things. Right now, there are 2 Jinchuriki, so he knows about Killer Bee and Naruto by name, which neither Momoshiki nor Kinshiki do. So, yeah. He had, was it One Smart that called him like a cocky scout, or was it Dr. Strangle? Like, yeah, he is a scout. He's been sent ahead. He's doing recon. He did his recon job. He knows that Toneri is there somewhere. He has to track him down. It takes him a while to do that. While he's on Earth, he also goes and explores or watches in or something. Like, he has intel. Or sorry, I shouldn't say while he was on Earth. It's like while he's in the region is what I meant, right? And then he meets up with Kinshiki and Momoshiki in order to tell them about all this shit. But yeah, this all happens after the comet has passed, right? Like, he doesn't start going towards Earth until after the comet has passed. I think this I just kept for posterity because Urashiki is here. I don't think that there was any real reason to talk about this, but this is another scene with him. Seems Kaguya developed an attachment to someone of this planet. Oh yeah, they just explained like Kaguya's motivations for why she quote unquote like betrayed the clan, bore his children. So here they're on Earth here, as far as I can tell, draining Killer Beast chakra, which is why I don't think that they're in, you know, Momoshiki's dimension. Betrayed us and feared our existence. So she tried to build living weapons. Those are the White Zetsu. She was stopped by her own children and was sealed away. Right. Okay. So we're getting the backstory for people who haven't like seen Naruto or maybe need a refresher. So the thing about this is like I think that what happened was, you know, Kaguya did all of this shit, and Hamura and Hagoromo were probably aware of that. And then when Hamura goes to the moon and starts his clan there, and is like watching over Kaguya's corpse or whatever, he probably knows all about that shit. And so it makes sense that Toneri would then inherit that knowledge and would understand that eventually an Otsutsuki would show up again and be expecting that. It also makes sense that in a pre-digital society that they would need some means of telling time, and like our day is based around the cycle of the sun, our month is based around the cycle of the moon, like the rotation of our planets in respect to one another. Our zodiac sign in the west is based on the precession of the sun through the constellations along the ecliptic, I think. And then in Chinese constellations, which the Kishuku is in reference to, of course, it's the precession of the moon through the constellations. So I think Sage asked me, like, what is the evidence of there being this celestial clock? Like, who made that? Like, where did that come from? It's that there isn't a literal fucking clock. It's that people use astronomical objects to tell time, because that's where we get our whole sense of time from in the first place, and especially before fucking any kind of like technology. That's how people were like designing calendars in the first place. Like, calendars are just records of shit happening in space around us. The whole like, I can't believe I had to explain like the concept of what a calendar is, but you know, it doesn't. Apparently, it needs to be brought up and discussed. So here we are. That's why Toneri was looking at the stars. That's why he was paying attention to the constellations. That's why he was on the lookout for a comet. And that's why he said, okay, now that that comet happened, this other stuff is going to be happening. Because he's a descendant of the clan that was supposed to watch over Earth and destroy it if anything went wrong with it. But also, he, like, obviously would have known, based on all the sacrifices of his clan, and everything that they went through, and the presence of Kaguya on the moon, like about the Otsutsuki. Like he knows that he has the concept of the Amatsubito, right? Like he didn't just like make that term up, as far as I can tell. Um, that seems to be related to the history and legacy of the clan, which is explained more in the movie The Last. So it kind of makes sense that he would be looking at that and being like, okay, so the appointed time has come. Talking about fate, talking about destiny, all that stuff. It makes sense, right? I think it makes more sense than, yeah, Urashiki 40 years ago just decided to fuck through the Cancer constellation, and then Toneri saw that, and instead of calling him a person, which he knows the term for, and he would have said, and being like, oh shit, here comes the Otsutsuki, there he goes, I better prepare for him because there he is. He just happens to call him a comet and happens to call him like the specifically outdated term of a comet that refers to a specific Chinese form of astronomy that also connects to the name of the constellation, that also specifically connects to a specific like time telling system. You know, I, okay, sure. The context doesn't matter, right? Right, guys? It's so fucking frustrating sometimes, I swear to God. I'm kidding, says Saria. I mean, I don't really have any stake in this. I don't care about any of the scaling. I just want Naruto to survive the Boruto series. I would like that too. Everyone else can die as long as Naruto lives. I kind of want new Kurama to survive too. Dr. Sango says Urashiki didn't go through the portal there. He just traveled from Kaguya's planet to Earth in 2 seconds and slowly slid into to be consistent with the moon. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, even though he can just like sort of casually open up a portal without even like flinching, he just decides to speed at like, I think Sage said that 800 times FTL was like a massive lowball. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure, why not? Sure. Makes sense. Doesn't even need to go through the portal to get away from Kaguya's dimension either, right? You can just cross dimensions because Naruto characters are like 4D or whatever. Fucking god, bro. Time slip arc scaling is solid. The most damaging thing Jiraiya ever does outside of Urashiki, breathing and poisoning and scratching his clothes. Sasuke was the only one hurting Urashiki in 1v1. Yeah, through conventional means. I want to go back to that and rewatch it because to be totally honest, I've only watched through it once, and it was like a YouTube upload of the full fight, and I'm pretty sure, or like the full arc, and I'm pretty sure that parts were like clipped out for copyright. So I need to sit down and just like watch everything with Urashiki in it to really get a full sense of his character. I know enough about like how he consumes his eyes, and he gets like he like quote unquote ascends similar to how Momoshiki does, and then like Sasuke is there, but he's kind of out of chakra and fatigued, and then there's Jiraiya, Boruto, and Naruto and stuff, and then Sasuke does like the mind wipe thing at the end, so it's all like that's why nobody remembers it or talks about it. So I know the broad strokes, but it's been a while since I've actually I haven't really studied it. Um, but yeah, I do remember though like instances of Naruto reacting to and like surviving attacks from this supposedly universe tier like faster than light character. Um, Kid Naruto, right? Like even if you think that like Urashiki is only 1 times the speed of light. Like he can move at the speed of light. He definitely never does in that fight against Naruto, right? So it's like because if he did, the sheer amount of force that would be carried with him, if he even like came within like a mile of Naruto, would just like vaporize him. I'm being hyperbolic. That's not a precise figure, but yeah, it's like it doesn't make any sense. Like if a hair on his head brushed past Kid Naruto, this is Kid Naruto we're talking about, he'd be fucking vaporized. Like it doesn't make any sense unless you just throw away our understanding of how physics works in the verse. In which case, are you willing to do that just for that special pleading style, or like how does it affect everything else? It's like it gets really really messy really fast, and so I think it's just much more elegant, especially since there's no real positive evidence, in my opinion, to demonstrate Urashiki being FTL in the first place. It just makes much more sense. It's much more elegant to just say that he's not, and then you don't have to go out of your way to do all these mental gymnastics to retrofit Kid Naruto into somehow being able to be relevant to an MFTL universal fucking fisherman, right? When I say you, one smart, just so you know, I'm not saying you specifically. I'm not like attacking you here. I'm saying like the collective you. Hopefully that made sense. The scaling issues are from people thinking raw power somehow gets around poison, every seal, and flesh-eating energy. Okay, well, if your argument then is that like he is that like that wouldn't be a debunk to him being hurt because it's hacks, then yeah, that's a valid point. Um, Dr. Strangle says, do you think they just didn't want to animate them going through the portals, as that takes effort that could be spent on canon scenes? Maybe, but it kind of looks to me like the portal asset. Well, I'll have to go back to the other clip, but like the portal asset kind of feels to me like it's just something that they have, right? Like I'm no expert in animation, but I think basically watching some behind the scenes for some shows like Rick and Morty or whatever, and for Smiling Friends, they have like cells essentially, like they have all of these different like poses for characters and shit in a big library, and so once they're designed like and animated, then they can just kind of like drop them in other scenes. So the cost is particularly steep when they make it for the first time, but then reusing it later is much cheaper and easier. Now granted, they still have to like account for lighting and animate the characters going through the portals and like, you know, position it and skew it correctly in the scene, so it's not free. But intuitively, I don't think that that would be such a huge barrier to entry, if that makes sense. Teuchi, yeah, Teuchi. I just assumed that everybody knew that Teuchi was like goated protected status. Like nobody hurts Teuchi, right? Even like fucking Madara would let him live. Let's see. Saria says, "Oh no, I didn't mean like the new gen characters, John. The kids can live. I fucking love Boruto and Himawari and their friends. I just mean pre-Boruto characters who are free on the killing chain." Oh wait, so like you would okay. I'm not even gonna challenge you on that. That's, you know, that's a bold perspective, but I support you. So let's see. Okay, so let's wrap this up real quick. I think honestly, looking at the time, well, let's see. Let's see one. Okay. Command the vulgar creatures. Very nice of you, Momo. Right, and this is what you were saying. Was it one smart? Is this all like the paltry amount of chakra? I don't know if it's depicted this way in every incarnation, but yeah. I don't think there's anything else super relevant here. Just can skim through this. Okay. I think there was one more thing that kind of helps clarify things from this conversation at some point. All the ruins connected to Kaguya. Sorry, I forget what episode that's in, but I have it written down somewhere, so if you guys want to know, I can go look it up. It's got to be in this region anyway. It's like 50, 51, 52, and 53. All this stuff is from there. It can be from the Otsutsuki clan. No matter how you look at it, they seem to be connected. So, in order to resist some kind of threat, Kaguya had prepared the White Zetsu, and now they become active. Yep. The time is near. Okay, yeah, oh, that's very important. Okay, I'm glad I included that. So Kaguya knew that the Otsutsuki were going to come, and seems to have known, like, when they were going to come, right? Because Naruto here, after analyzing Kaguya's scroll, knew about when they were going to show up, right? Or knew that, like, eventually they were going to reappear, something like that. So, just to recap everything, Sage's interpretation, and you can come to your conclusions about which one you think is better. As I understand it, Sage's argument, his entire argument, is that the Toneri saw a comet flying overhead, and he said that's a comet, but he actually meant celestial body. Later on, he sees Urashiki, and he calls Urashiki celestial being, but he really meant celestial body. And since, or maybe he didn't mean it the first time, but either way, he uses the term celestial body, and celestial body can mean a person in the sky, I guess, as well as a comet. So the comet is Urashiki. And then everything else that follows from that, we can conform around that idea, right? So like whatever the consequences may be, whatever the implications may be, whatever the narrative may be, doesn't really matter, because that is what it is, and then we just have to figure out how everything else fits in there. My approach is kind of the opposite. I start by looking at all of the context, and then I try to figure out what the evidence says and where it leads us. And this is why I accuse Sage of employing apologetics, right? Because there's a very fundamental difference in perspective and research methods and like the pursuit of understanding of something between starting off with one piece of evidence or one perspective or something, and then going from that and like sculpting everything else around that one piece of evidence versus gathering all of the evidence first and then coming to your conclusion. And Sage does this all the time, and it's not just him, right? It's not like I personally like this is like editorializing a little bit, but I don't even think it's Sage's fault. I think Sage was kind of ruined by our community. Like I think that Sage came in and he did good work and he had a sincere approach to things, and then he spent time around these fuck debaters who just like use all of these like really warped crappy tactics to get one over on each other, and he started picking up on their tactics and using them and then saw success with that, and now he's just like down the rabbit hole, right? Like but I don't think it's his fault per se. I think it's more like, yeah, maybe I'm being too generous or whatever, but like seriously, I just think that there are these memes and tropes and metas in our community, and then like people come in and then they glom onto them and they don't realize like how bad they are, I guess. Um, but anyway, so yeah, it's a fundamental difference in perspective, but also like it's a fundamental mistake in evidence gathering and point building, that the way that people tend to approach power scaling debates that I've seen is they will identify a feat, an event, a statement, a scaling chain, and basically just put that down like a trap card on the table and be like, this is objectively true, this is a fact, and therefore everything else will work according to this, right? So like this was the whole like fucking multi like a month plus Hashirama stream sequence, right? It's like there's one statement in the data books that says Hashirama is the strongest. That's it. It's like one sentence. And because it says verbatim in an official source that Hashirama is the strongest, then he must be the strongest. And now we have to figure out how to fit everything else around that. And that's all we can do because it literally says that. So sometimes that takes the form of saying, well, maybe this thing that this character said was mistranslated. Sometimes it takes the form of saying, well, maybe this feat over here was under special circumstances, so we don't have to like regard that, or that's an outlier or something. But sometimes it takes the form of like, oh, I'm just gonna fucking leave out the other statement that says Madara is peerless, right? Or I'm just going to like, remove the context from the scene or try to dismiss it entirely because part of it was mistranslated, in my opinion, as somebody who doesn't know the language. So I'm just going to dismiss the entire thing and not think about the context of it, right? You see how it very quickly starts to merge away from being an issue of interpretation to one of apologetics. And the more you engage in that sort of thing, I think the more you can lose sight of the fact that you're literally doing it backwards. You're taking a piece of evidence and then letting the evidence chisel away all of, or like taking the one thing that you're defending and letting that chisel away everything else that doesn't fit with your perspective. That's not how science works. That's not how like good empiricism works. It's not how good evidence gathering or researching works. Like it's not good detective work in any sense of the word, in any context. You're conforming the evidence to appear to fit one particular thing instead of looking at the evidence in context. It's a serious fucking problem, and it's not just in the Naruto community. It's not just a power scaling thing. It's like a human thing, right? It's just we are sometimes not very good at this sort of thing. We need to become aware of it. We need to practice it. We need to help each other to spot it when like to get each other's backs, because it's so easy. Like our brains are very flawed and very quirky, very weird little fucking flesh globs, and they make mistakes all the fucking time, so we have to help each other out with this shit. But like you also need to understand that if you get the order of operations wrong, the entire equation can fall apart. There's the whole like PEMDAS or whatever, that there's a reason why you do certain things in math in a certain order, because if you just fuck up the order, then you get a different answer. And that's essentially what's happening here. So, a couple more things to cover. I think we're kind of done with the video footage now, but just as a quick overview of everything we've talked about, this is how I see the sequence of events. Sage's explanation is like, celestial body means celestial person means celestial body can potentially mean comet, therefore comet is Urashiki. My explanation is this: Kaguya came to Earth with Ishiki, and she was supposed to produce a chakra fruit. The other Otsutsuki left her alone because she was just supposed to come back eventually, or maybe Ishiki was when the harvest was done. that didn't happen because Kaguya, was sealed away by Hagoromo and Hamura after bearing those children and eating the fruit for herself and betraying the clan. Um, then she gets imprisoned on the moon. Hamura is aware of how dangerous she is, and starts a whole clan, and their whole thing is like protecting, like guarding the moon, protecting the earth, and upholding Hagoromo's will, right, essentially. So they are aware that Kaguya made white Zetsus. They're aware that she was preparing this army. They were aware that there was going to be a threat coming in the future. At that time, they didn't really have any modern timekeeping devices, so they used constellations, just like and other things like that to tell time. They had an idea of when, like approximately when the Otsutsuki were going to arrive, and then they did. So Toneri, as the guardian of Earth, looks up at the sky one night and he sees a celestial event happening, which is a comet passing through a constellation. The comet has a specific name that means something very specific, and the constellation also has a specific name which means something very specific. He recognizes this as an appointed sign that an appointed event in time is coming, and that after that event, the Otsutsuki will appear later. The event in question is the Nue event. That happens, that gets resolved, and then he says the Otsutsuki are going to show up later. After those events, Momoshiki and Kinshiki are having a separate discussion after doing a harvest on another planet. Kinshiki went to check to see what the fuck Kaguya was up to because they hadn't heard back for a long time. They have no idea what's happening. And they are just like, okay, well, I guess we better go look for her because this is weird. Did she betray us? I don't know. So they start looking through her dimensions. They either tell Urashiki or Urashiki gets told by somebody else to go look in on Toneri separately. Urashiki, or not to go look at him specifically, but to go get the chakra fruit specifically. Now, Toneri and or whoever commanded him, not Toneri, Urashiki and or whoever commanded him to go find Toneri, know who Toneri is, know approximately like what region of space that they're in, know everything that happened on the planet with the events of the last, and either already know about Naruto and Killer Bee, or like went down to the planet and did some scouting and recon and then learned about it. Urashiki, with that knowledge, like casually shows up in Kaguya's dimension, gives the knowledge to Momoshiki and Kinshiki, casually teleports to Earth, and then from there they go and do the rest of the plot. So the Comet and Urashiki are related, they are connected, but their connection is that they're essentially just like, you know, chronologically connected, and that's it. Now, notice that in Sage's video, which you can go back and check out in a second, like he doesn't include any of that stuff, right? He just shows the comet and then he skips ahead to Urashiki, right? Doesn't show any of the interstitial stuff at all. So it looks like there's a comet and then Urashiki shows up. It doesn't mention like the amount of time that passes between those two things or anything else in the middle. It's just like spliced together in jitters. So from my perspective, it's dishonest, it's incurious, it's myopic, it's misrepresentative, it's lazy, and it's just like not nice to people who genuinely want to understand what's happening in the series. But I mean, the video did start off with Merchant saying that like the Raikage and all the top level Jonin in the verse are light speed. So I mean, like, what the fuck would you expect, really? I mean, like, it starts off really bad. It starts off really bad. So that being said, I really like Toneri. I like the last. I like a lot of the stuff around the Otsutsuki, and I really do think that some of these scenes that come up here are some of the most interesting in terms of like the lore and the mechanics and the future prophecy shit in the Naruto universe. So and they're hard to understand. So I get it, but also do your fucking homework. I mean, like, and if you can't do your homework, then like if other people volunteer to help you and do your homework for you and then give you that homework assignment that you were supposed to do wrapped up in a nice neat little bow with a little kiss on it, maybe like actually just turn that in, right? Just do that, because at least then you're getting some good information out there. Like, again, I have to stress this, I told Sage about this months ago. Like, we went through this in great detail months ago, and you didn't give a shit. So whatever. You know what? I can lead the horse to the water. I can't make him drink, like I said before. So that being said, let me close down the capture over here. So I think we're good with that. And I think we can start going back to some of the other stuff. Yeah. Okay. So let me catch up on chat real quick. Kid Naruto was never relevant to Urashiki. Urashiki was only ever worried about a healthy adult Sasuke. He toys with Jiraiya and the kids. I suppose so, but I mean, like, it's just weird to me. It's just weird to me that like this MFTL character would be fighting with any amount of urgency and sincerity against like children and just not able to, like, he doesn't just like blitz them in one shot and win, right? Even when Sasuke's not even really paying attention. And like, okay, so we have Boruto and Naruto and Jiraiya, like part 1. Do we really think that part 1 Jiraiya is like actually in any way on par with like a MFTL universal character? Like, maybe there's some argument that when he went through the time portal that he lost his power or whatever. In which case, okay, that's fine. Then we could just say that he was like massively nerfed, I guess. But yeah, it would just, that would need to be established. And like the fact that we could say that he was nerfed when he went into the past, that would counter a potential debunk, but that still to me wouldn't establish that he's light speed. And then it's like, okay, well, how many more like counter debunks and like edge cases and stuff like that are we gonna have to like create excuses for this guy? You know what I mean? So not Sage, I mean like Urashiki. Like if he's supposed to be light speed, like, and universal or anywhere relevant to that, then like why don't we ever see him like do that shit? And then we have to go through every single example where he potentially had an opportunity to do that. It's like, so here's the other thing, right? Like we talked about this briefly last time, but even if I were to grant that Urashiki is like MFTL and he can like fly through the sky at MFTL speeds, or sorry, through space, space is a vacuum. There's no atmosphere. There's no air resistance. The only thing that like gets in his way is just getting out of the way of other celestial objects, and also like making sure that he doesn't get caught in like the gravity well of like a black hole or whatever, and yeah, stuff like that, right? So there's no air resistance. There's nothing like that. So like even if he can do this, also there's another thing. Like if you've played any game like Outer Wilds demonstrates this really well, right? Like if you get in a spaceship and you are in 0G and you are in fucking, you don't have any air resistance or anything like that, right? You're just sort of out in the void, and you just keep accelerating. Like you hit an accelerator and you just keep going forward, that acceleration is going to keep stacking, right? It's going to keep adding and adding and adding indefinitely, as far as I'm aware. Because, technically speaking, if we could go at the speed of light, if you were in a car in space and you put your foot down on the quote unquote on the gas, and let's say we had infinite gas, and the car accelerated by 1 mile per hour per second, right? Or 1 mile per hour per hour. Eventually, given enough time, you would get up to near light speed, right? Because as long as the g-force of the acceleration doesn't destroy the car or kill you, there's nothing to push back against the acceleration that you're imparting to the vehicle, so it'll get up to there. So, okay, Urashiki can accelerate and get himself up to that speed, but that's speed in a vacuum. We have no idea how long it took him to get up to that speed, or how that actually translates practically to like real-time speed. You know what I mean? Like, how long did it take him to accelerate up to that speed? And can he actually do that in a fight? Can he actually sustain that for any appreciable length of time? So honestly, interstellar travel like this is kind of completely different from any sort of like in atmosphere travel. It's just like there are so many different physical considerations that get added when you move from a vacuum to an environment, to an atmosphere. So I don't, even if he were demonstrably like this, it just like wouldn't apply or translate in any way to his movement on Earth. At least not necessarily. So let's see. Thing about the tree and being made from bees. Chakra should be in episode 65. I think we just looked at that, right? Unfortunately, like these are just clips that I recorded in OBS, so I don't actually like if I try to show the anime on Crunchyroll, it'll shut down the stream. So feel free to send me a message to remind me of that. But yeah, I'd be happy to look into that separately if there's something in episode 65. Unfortunately, I won't be able to research that now with you because yeah. Oh, I missed a message from you. Let me see. Slimy Orb says Teuchi is the only Konoha person who didn't know about Naruto not being Kurama that took care of him. Oh shit, I didn't even realize that. Oh, and he probably gave him like free ramen from time to time, right? Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you for mentioning that. I'm sorry I missed your message. And yeah, folks, like if I miss a message of yours or whatever, feel free to remind me because it's not intentional, I promise. So thank you, Orb. One Smart says the silhouettes of Momoshiki, Kinshiki, and Urashiki are in the Shippuden anime when Kaguya is giving a warning. Oh, interesting. Okay, so that I think then Doctor Strangle that would kind of support the authenticity of or the idea that at the very least they were being thought of beforehand. And, Dr. Strangle says, I do mean that the process of stretching and squeezing and drawing new frames for the precise movement of entering and exiting the portal, which takes real man hours to compare to just sliding PNGs in this case. I don't think we can blame the Naruto community. He has told me his beliefs were informed by watching. Oh my god. Oh, fuck me. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. That sucks. Yeah. Well, in that case, like, yeah, there's not really much I can do to help with that. That's honestly that's really sad. Like I appreciate you sharing with that me. Sorry, um, I appreciate you sharing that with me. It makes total sense. It totally fits the profile, so to speak. But it's really sad because I genuinely think that Sage like is a smart, passionate dude who cares a lot about something that I also care a lot about, and I want to see him succeed. I want to see his channel continue to grow and see him do well, and I just really want to help him understand shit better, and I also want to prevent him from misleading other people, which I think he does. I want to encourage him to be more curious because I don't think he's curious enough, and it's very fucking frustrating, and it's like unethical, I think. But at the same time, like I don't want anything bad to like I don't have a grudge against him as a person or anything like that. And I do think that people like William Lane Craig are so insidious and so awful and manipulative and psychologically damaging and horrible that I don't really blame anyone who grew up being influenced by people like that struggling with some of this stuff because I view the philosophy if I feel kind of disgusted even associating that term with people like Craig, but like I view that philosophy as essentially a form of brainwashing. It's very meticulously crafted to be insidious and brainwormy and thought controlly. Uh so I I'm not even mad. I was a little like pissed when I was like, really, David Lewis? But that's something that I could be like, okay, well, you picked up this book, you learned about this guy, you thought he was cool. Maybe you didn't fully grasp it, maybe you did. Um, but like that's one thing. But Craig and like his ilk are just you might as well have told me that like he's a fucking Ray Comfort fan, right? Like I don't know. Um it's just kind of sad because it feels like an otherwise like well-meaning good person got fucked over by one of these apologetic you know distortion merchants, and that is sad. That is sad to me. um thank you for sharing. You didn't make me sad. It's just disheartening that that winds up being the case. And this is kind of making me so to get personal for a second, like I don't want to say too much about my this personal thing, but like I had something that was very close to me who unfortunately kind of fell in with a cult, and I tried really hard when I saw this coming. I tried really hard to prevent that from happening, but at the time, I was also pretty, like, much more hardcore and outspoken about my atheist perspective. And I think I wound up hurting them because I was so, like, hardline about it. So then I realized that I was being kind of an asshole, and so I stopped, and I was just like, you know what? Okay, I'm scared about this for you, but I support you, and if this is what, um, Ken Hovind, yeah, Ken Hovind was actually who I was thinking of when I said Ray Comfort. I got those confused. Yeah, Ken Hovind. Thank you for reminding me there, Slimy Orb. Um, but yeah, I fucking, you know, I, I then tried to start to support them and like participate in their religion and like help, just be encouraging, which I still think was the right thing to do, right? Like it was clear that they meant it meant a lot to them, and I had the choice of either supporting them or just like continuing to make them feel rejected and unloved or whatever. It's not the right word for it, but and I wasn't gonna do that. But I was like, okay, I'm gonna support you because I care about you and I want you to pursue your dreams and stuff. But also, please understand what the risks are here. Please understand that this is the path that this could go down, and it'll be really hard to recover if that happens. And I'm really scared as somebody who cares about you. So I will support you. I'll stop trying to push you in any given way, but also in return, please just listen to what I'm saying, because like shit is gonna go badly if we don't prevent that from happening. And then it happened, and as far as I can tell, like they're not coming back from where they wound up, and it, I still like, no, sorry, this isn't like Naruto related, but I still feel like I failed them. Um, and I still like pretty regularly think back about like, well, fuck, should I have pushed harder? Because like if I had like essentially like grabbed them by the shoulders and shook them and be like, I'm not letting this happen to you, would I have prevented them from getting into that? And the answer is I don't think so. I think that like they had made up their minds and it was out of my control the entire time. And like if I had done that, it would have happened faster and more violently, and they would have felt more ostracized and alienated. And I think just being patient and giving them space was the right thing. But it doesn't feel right. Um, and so I just have like a lot of empathy, for lack of a better word, or something like that, with regards to how like cult mentalities can really bring people down. So, um, yeah, that sucks. Anyway, um, sorry, I kind of like just happened to hit a nerve. Not your fault, Doctor Strangle. You didn't like. I'm not. Just to be very clear, like you didn't make me sad or anything. I just like you happened to mention something that reminded me of a thing that reminded me of a thing, and so I needed to just process it for a second. But yeah, um, bad way to get informed. Yeah. Oh, you're talking about the yeah. I'm with you there, Slimy Orb. Sora says, I think Noodles mentioned in his Jiraiya video Sasuke was nerfed in the Boruto filler. That might have actually been the video that got me to go and watch that filler at the time. Because I was like, wait a minute, when the fuck did this happen? And then I went and checked it out. So, I think you're right. When Smart says Urashiki's fast enough to catch and dodge adult Gaara, teen Gaara can stop the Raikage. Urashiki was walking and laughing most of the arc because Sasuke got a chunk of his chakra yanked out. That's fair. Yeah, I appreciate the scaling there. I definitely don't think that the Raikage is light speed though. So I don't think that we get to light speed scaling for Ura based on that. But that's fine. At least not a Ken Hovind fan, yeah. To him, it was an innocuous comment, but at the moment, I was like, that so makes sense, but I also had a similar feel to what you're having now. Yeah, that's the thing. Well, like, look, I think that, yeah. I have more things to say, but maybe we should talk about it in DM or like on the Discord as opposed to here. But like the Elon Musk and the fucking Charlie Kirk stuff, that came up. But yeah, I don't want to like go too deep into that right now. Yeah. Orb says, I feel that about something that someone I thought was a close friend did. It's been almost a year, but every single day still doesn't go by without thinking, could I have stopped them? Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry that you had that experience as well. And it's tough, right? It's like I think when you have something bad happen to somebody in your life, like that you care a lot about, you're like you run through your head all the different things that you should have done differently, and it's really hard to figure out where your influence ends and like just if you want to call it fate or like their autonomy or however you want to explain it, like you know where that begins. Um, and it yeah, it can be very uncomfortable. So I hope that you're doing okay with that, and I'm sorry for that happened in your life. I hope you're able to make your peace with it. Clearly, I am still kind of working through my own feelings about the stuff. So even though it happened years ago, but yeah, that's cool. We just got to do what we can to like look out for the people we care about, obviously, and then also try to be kind enough to ourselves. I think to understand that it's not all within our control, and therefore it's not really all our fault either. All we can do is like do our best to be sincere and be empathetic and like give people space, and advocate for them. But ultimately, like we also need to respect their own autonomy, even if it leads to things that we very much don't agree with. I think. But again, like as I'm saying that, there's the part of my brain that was like, "No, you fucking coward! You should have stopped them. You should have prevented them." And I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, yeah. Okay, now now I see the face. It's like I'm tilting my head to the right a little bit, and it's like, I don't want to eat my carrots. Like it's like a very bratty like face like that. Also, the other thing that I never figured out with this is I never figured out why these two stars light up and make a sound, right? Because like in the anime scene where this happens, they go ching, and I think it's actually the same like a stock sound effect that plays in Sekiro as well. Although I can't prove that right now, but I don't fucking know what that's supposed to be. The best I can think of is that like the stars glow brighter at certain parts of the year, and so it's just again feeding into that celestial clock thing. And I think that maybe it's supposed to be symbolism. So I think maybe one way to look at this, right? I actually really like this. This is not literally Momoshiki, Kinshiki, and Urashiki, but it is symbolically them. Because we have the one character represented as Urashiki who's going across the sky, right? And he's kind of like the scout that's going ahead, doing his own thing, going his own direction. And then we have the two stars who are, one is situated slightly higher than the next, but they're both like relative to each other, so to speak, and they're visually represented as being close to each other, and they light up after the comet does. So I think that this is again like prophetic, fortune telling, foreshadowing, where this is supposed to represent Urashiki arriving at the Earth first, and this is supposed to represent Momoshiki and Kinshiki then approaching after the fact. So power scaling, unsurprisingly, yeah, that's the perfect face there, Dr. Strangle. Um, Unsurprisingly, power scaling doesn't often leave a lot of room for literary nuance. I guess folks just really aren't interested in that when they're talking about who punches harder than the next guy. But I do think that is relevant here, and I think I prefer that as opposed to trying to figure out like why did stars that are 40 plus light years away, or these are in a different constellation, so I don't even fucking know how far these away. Why did they make a sound when sound doesn't travel in the vacuum of space? Like, are we really gonna? I feel like it would be totally missing the fucking point to like try to explain that, in a physics way. It just doesn't. You'd have to say like the stars were oscillating more brightly because of like a local nova event, and then that radiation somehow interacted with whatever atmosphere there is on the moon, which caused the vibration that we pick. Like, I don't think that it's literal, man. Like, I don't know. I'm not gonna die on that hill though. Either way, thank you again for sharing that that background there, the image stitched together. I really do appreciate it. So that being said, I think that uh, we're nearing. Oh, so we're over the 3 hour mark, and I haven't started responding to the video. So I think what I'm gonna do is keep going for like another little while, half an hour, or something, and I'm gonna finish up by talking about the star lore, behind the constellations and stuff like that. And then this is gonna like I'm gonna wrap that up here tonight, and then next time it'll be the actual video breakdown. So sorry if people were specifically coming here to hear me trash talk Sage the whole time, like go over the video or whatever. That will happen next week. That gives me more time to make my way through the whole video as well. And then today, I'll rename the thumbnail and everything to just be about the astronomy side of things. That makes sense because like otherwise, I'll be starting now already kind of tired, and I think that I won't do as good of a job. I'd like to make sure I come at it with a fresh mind. That being said, let me see here. Dr. Stangle says, I think the bright stars are just symbolism for Momoshiki and Kinshiki. The comet is from the next scene right before the two bright stars and is just the mark of the 1,000 years. Yeah, that's great. That's great. I really like that. I like that a lot. Slimy Orb said, now it's time for the big Hagoromo to high-five himself. Yeah, there we go. What is the sound of one Hagoromo clapping? It might just be a comet that comes around every 1,000 years. I like that. You know what? You know what I forgot to do? I forgot that I should do for next time. I should go and watch the anime scenes where Kaguya shows up. Because first of all, when she appears, it does kind of look like a comet overhead. And I wonder if there's any little tidbits or hints in the background about comets and stars and shit like that that we can glean from that. Yep. But we're going to talk about comets going around in cycles and stuff like that. So that being said, going back to our previous, I don't need that right now, conversation, there were a couple of terms that came up, namely Kamigami, Amatsubito, and Kishuku. As a reminder, Kamigami is like a referring to the pantheon of gods in Shinto, if I remember correctly, or it can just mean like multiple kami. Amatsubito is a celestial or divine person. It doesn't necessarily mean like an alien. In fact, it seems to more be referring to just somebody of a divine or holy nature, possibly associated with the deities of creation, something like that. And then Kishuku is the constellation of the ghost. The English translator decided to go with Cancer because they share some of the same stars, but it is a different constellation, and the borders, the area defined by the constellation is different. So it is a distinct thing. And then Hokiboshi is the term used for comet, which is a slightly uncommon use, if I remember correctly. So that being said, this is not like super complete or finalized or whatever, but I did want to mention that I've been trying to learn a little bit about this, and I want to take you sort of like on a journey, so to speak, of how I learned about some of this stuff, and then encourage you to do so as well if you want to understand it better. So I was curious to learn about the ghost Chinese constellation, right? Kishuku. And notice that the Chinese is also similar. I can't pronounce this right, but you can see how they got the Japanese from this. So the ghost constellation, which I believe is right there, or no, it's probably there actually. I'm not sure. Is specifically one of the constellations in the mansion of the. Sorry, it is one of the southern mansions of the Vermilion Bird. So if you're like me, right, you don't know what any of this shit means, and so I looked at this and I was like, okay, I am totally lost at sea here. I need to learn something about this. And so I just started clicking around. So here's what I learned. The Ghost Mansion, Chinese, Kishuku-ish, is one of the 28 mansions of the Chinese constellations, one of the southern mansions of the Vermilion Bird. Okay. So as I understand it, there are 4 different like regions that are referred to as elements or something. I'll look at that in just a second. The 4 symbols, right, that the Chinese astronomers grouped the sky into. Okay, so going from there, I was curious to learn more about the Chinese constellations and the 28 mansions. So here's, we're not going to read through all this, but like here is a summary of the 28 mansions. 28 mansions, also called I'm not going to try to pronounce that, the Shu, I guess, I lied, I did try to pronounce it, are part of the Chinese constellation systems. They can be considered as the equivalent to the zodiacal constellations in Western astronomy, though the 28 mansions reflect the movement of the moon through a sidereal month rather than the sun in a tropical year, right? So again, like I think I got that right before, saying that the Western astrological signs the zodiacal constellations, the Western zodiac, are defined by the passage of the sun through the different constellations, whereas the Chinese system is the passage of the moon. So it makes more sense also for Toneri being like a resident of the moon to be using those constellations anyway, right? In addition to his like sort of more archaic speech and his association with like this ancient clan, and his like very formal um, attitude and stuff like that, kind of evoking a bygone era. I think it makes more sense that he would be using moon-based calendar since he lives on the fucking moon, right? Um, Now, the lunar mansion system was in use in other parts of East Asia, such as ancient Japan. The Ban Shen Shikai, written by this awesome dude over here, mentions the system several times and includes an image of the 28 mansions. Okay, so the important takeaway from here is that this wasn't something that was just like a little secret niche thing, like a cult thing or whatever, in China at a certain point of time. It was very influential, and it was also a part of Japanese history as well. So, in case you're wondering about what the mansions are, ancient Chinese astronomers divided the sky ecliptic into four regions, and I guess I can pull this up, but like the ecliptic plane is the apparent path of the sun on the celestial sphere. So it's like an you know, look at that. It explains it better than I can with my brain at this time. But yeah, this is what this is. Look at the thing. Okay, ancient Chinese astronomers divided the sky into four regions, collectively known as the Four Symbols, each assigned a mysterious animal. Their azure dragon on the east, black tortoise in the north, white tiger on the west, and vermilion bird in the south. So the constellation of the Ghost is just one of the constellations within the region in the south. Okay, that's basically all we need to know. And then you can see the division over here. If you kind of go down, vermilion bird, right? Well, ghost, willow, star, extended net, wings, chariot. I was hoping that we might find some kind of clue here, but nothing really. But this is kind of interesting. The mansions are matched with the day of the week in an animal to calculate a person's fortune and luck. So this does, fit with the idea that Toneri uses signs in the stars and specifically related to these constellations to play into luck and fortune and stuff like that. Moving on from that, mentioned that the Bunsen Shukai contained information about these astronomical things, principles, ideas, and it was passed into Japan. This document is a book containing a collection of knowledge from the clans of the Iga and Koga. The book was compiled by Fujibayashi Yasutake, descendant of this dude, in the early years of the Tokugawa shogunate. It summarizes the main points of 3 volumes of the original ninjutsu book and was written by selecting only those that fit the times. In the beginning of the Bansha Tsukai, the existence of the original text Kanrin Seiyo was mentioned. Okay. Siege of Osaka. All right. It has sections on astrological and philosophical beliefs of the times, and along with the Shoninki and the Ninpiden, they make up the 3 major sources of direct information about the shadowy profession. Okay. So medieval ninja document, Nimpiden, authentic ninjutsu manual. Okay, so this is something that's really important, right? And when people say the context doesn't matter, the context isn't relevant, you're really cheating yourself and others for an opportunity to really learn about the extremely rich and detailed and honestly pretty fascinating tapestry of texture and inspiration and influence that kind of goes into designing a series like Naruto. Like, I don't understand how somebody could possibly say that Susanoo in like the Shinto entity Susanoo is irrelevant to Naruto, and its influence doesn't matter, or like Amaterasu, like that is irrelevant and doesn't matter, like Amaterasu, the sun goddess, right? Or like the imperial regalia of Japan, like they're not relevant. Jiraiya, like the gallant Jiraiya tale from real life is not relevant to Naruto. It's a bizarre thing to say, right? But this in particular, right? The Toneri is referring to a specific constellation, the term for that specific constellation comes from Chinese astronomy, was then imported into Japan in the same document that contained, or like was recorded and brought into a document in Japan. That same document is full of fucking ninjutsu, like real life ninjutsu, like obviously not like real magic or whatever, but like this is like the foundational ninja texts. And you might have noticed something over here, right? This might look familiar to you if you're familiar with Naruto. So again, please tell me how this isn't relevant. Please tell me how this doesn't matter, how this context is not important. I don't fucking relate to that sentiment whatsoever. It's fucking bizarre to me. But I was kind of interested in this. It says this diagram for the Bunsen Shukai uses divination and esoteric cosmology, aka Onmyodo, to instruct, or Onmyodo, to instruct the ideal time for taking certain actions. So this book that directly references that constellation and also has an image that is like directly used in Naruto also happens to have an instruction on how to use cosmology as a sign for taking certain actions. I think that might possibly be relevant to a character who evokes this terminology. But let's learn a little bit more about this. So Onmyodo, again, sorry for my pronunciation. Onmyodo, also the way of yin and yang, is a technique that uses knowledge of astronomy and calendars to divine good fortune in terms of date, time, direction, and general personal affairs, originating from the philosophy of the yin yang and the five elements. The philosophy of yin yang and wuxing was introduced to Japan at the beginning of the 6th century and influenced by Taoism, Buddhism, and Confucianism. Okay, so again, we don't have to read through all of this, but like, just look. They were linked, right? The 5 elements: astronomy, calendar making, the reckoning of time, divination, studies based on observation of nature, right? Interacted with Shinto and Goryo worship. So these things are deeply intertwined with one another. Okay, Onmyoji was one of the classifications of civil servants. Onmyoji were specialists in magic and divination. Their court responsibilities range from tasks such as keeping track of the calendar, mystical duties such as divination, protection of the capital from evil spirits. They could... What the fuck was that picture? Oh, okay. You have an image of them? Yeah. They could also summon and control Shikigami. So, this is all very important, and this is all deeply connected. I think it's a very myopic Western attitude to say that none of this matters. Vermilion Bird is thus the fourth element, or the fourth symbol, right? Okay. I don't think I really learned anything else from here, but this is interesting that it appeared here. Here's some more information on the 4 symbols. I don't think I actually had read through this yet, but 4 auspicious beasts, that term is important. You can read more about this here if you want. Moving right along, a lunar mansion, a lunar station, or lunar house is a segment of the ecliptic through which the moon passes in its orbit around the Earth. The concept was used by several ancient cultures as part of their calendrical system. So again, right, like asking me where a star clock comes from, or an astrological clock comes from. It comes from the fucking sky. It comes from the moon moving through the fucking constellations. Like it's just up there, right? So the houses, like the 28 houses in Chinese astronomy, come from the passage of the moon through the constellations. So when we hear terms like the comet has entered the constellation, which is a more parsimonious explanation, that it specifically means that a man, like a person, not a human, but a person, flew some arbitrary flew into some arbitrary position defined as some like shape, I guess, region in this otherwise unrelated collection of stars, or that this is in reference to the very deep and thoroughly established cultural and historical context in which the thing is created, right? Like, I think this is very much more, how do you say, not relevant. Hopefully I've expressed myself okay. Kind of getting tired. So, Chinese lodgings are the Chinese East Asian form of the lunar stations. They can be considered as equivalent to Western zodiac. Well, this is kind of the same thing that we talked about before. I think that's mostly what I wanted to talk about, right? Feel free to read up on this more. Oh, yeah, yeah. So, group of stars. I thought that the Hokiboshi was somewhere in here as well, but I think I'm getting confused. The Beehive Cluster and the Cancer constellation. This might be one of the things that we see in the star chart, so to speak. But I have to look into this more. Historical context. Oh yeah. So something that I wanted to mention. Two more quick things. Ancient Chinese astrology set great store by celestial omens such as comets, which were important and always disastrous, under the theory of Wuxing, which remember was directly related to the astronomy stuff that we talked about previously. Comets were thought to signify an imbalance of yin and yang. Chinese emperors employed observers specifically to watch for them. Some important decisions were made as a result. For instance, Emperor Ruizong of Tang, I'm sorry for that pronunciation, abdicated after a comet appearance in 1712. So, historically speaking, the appearance of comets was considered not only just a portent, but also specifically a portent of massive change and or catastrophe, to the point where this emperor saw the comet and was so freaked out by it that he just gave up his throne, basically, right? So and they also had individuals that were appointed specifically to watch the stars and make sure that people knew when they were coming. And this is part of the tradition that directly informed the text that contained the early ninjutsu texts in Japanese history as well. So this is all connected, right? Hopefully you're seeing the connections there. Nothing really much to say about this. I had this tab open because I wanted to see if I could identify some comets that did specifically, could I find a comet that passed through the Ghost constellation at some point in Chinese history or Japanese history? I didn't get that far in this research. I did think it was interesting that, under Halley's Comet or Halley's Comet, it is mentioned as something that is seen in China and Japan, although briefly. And so you can see that in China and in Japan there there was a comet, and it was the same comet, and it passed through the sky, over and over and over again in a repeated pattern that people noticed multiple times over history. So the idea that a comet could also be used as a sign of a repeating thing happening, particularly if it's a comet that's big enough and burning bright enough, like the one that we saw, to match what the size would need to be for the one that we saw in that scene with Toneri, although I guess it's hard to know for sure. Seems to me like it would be a good candidate for something that could potentially be a periodic time telling thing. Let's see. Described by Japanese astronomers as being as large as the half moon. Its color was white, but its rays were red. Okay, so maybe not this comet specifically, but it's something that's part of the history. So I think I'm almost done. I'm gonna check one more thing, and then we can go. Probably be done for the evening. Yeah. So I'll just bring these. Can I just bring all these tabs over here? Oh, that would be too easy, huh? Okay, I had this in the other region, so this is probably the easiest thing to do. I think I might have pulled this up before when we were talking about the Amatsu Bito. Check out this article if you want to learn more about the history of Japan. Important to note here that Chinese civilization had a massive influence on Japanese civilization, which I think pretty much everybody's aware of, but just in case you didn't know that, it's worth looking into this sort of thing. We talked about the Koromatsukami. Did we actually talk about the Koromatsukami? I don't know if we talked about that specifically, so I'll pull this up. Koromatsukami, from which the Amatsu Bito comes, literally distinguishing heavenly kami, is the collective name for the first gods which came into existence. Yeah, no, I think we did go over this page, okay? And then the other things were, apparently, at least according to the wiki, Urashimi Taro was an inspiration for Urashiki. So if you want to learn more about the inspiration here, he's got the fishing gourd and everything over here. I didn't find anything here that really helps me understand the story better, but granted, I really didn't have as much time as I wanted to go over all this stuff. But, this might be a way of learning a little bit more. Of course, other characters may have the other characters in the Otsutsuki may have been inspired similarly. Momotaro, apparently, this name inspired Momoshiki, and then I think that's pretty much it. Like Kintaro was also inspired by Kinshiki, or vice versa, rather, right? So this might be worth looking up. And of course, Kaguya, right? That's probably much more well known. Kaguya is a Princess Kaguya, the main character in the Tale of the Bamboo Cutter, thought to be the oldest Japanese folktale, right? So obviously, a character who has quite a bit of traditional influence and import might be worth looking into this as well. So yeah, I think I can feel my brain turning off, and I can feel my voice cracking. So I think it does make sense to kind of wrap things up here for tonight. I'm sorry if you're looking forward to more response to the Sage video. But I think it makes sense. We will just, because like we're at a nice natural ending point for the astronomy discussion, so we'll wrap this up here, and then maybe even next Thursday, maybe I won't even wait till Sunday, we'll do another stream and we'll address the Sage video. I hope you learned something. I hope you found this fun. I hope that it helped enhance your understanding of the narrative and of the cultural context surrounding these characters. I know I certainly feel like I got a lot out of it personally, and I hope that comes across. If in relation to Sage's video, I do think that at the very least, I hope I established that, like, largely speaking, there's two different sides of a spectrum that we can adopt when engaging in discussions on this shit. And one is to just say, well, like, I can just point to this piece of evidence and therefore I'm right and you're wrong, and if you don't agree, you are biased and you have an agenda, and you are being facetious, and you're being disingenuous and you don't know what you're talking about. And then therefore we can make everything else conform to this particular perspective because of this particular piece of evidence. Or you can gather all the evidence and look at things in context and then use that to guide your ultimate conclusion. I would strongly advocate for the latter, because I think at the very least you're going to learn more and you're going to understand the context surrounding something more. But I'm also realizing that I think it's like I think I'm just kind of missing the point, because clearly this form of power scaling isn't about that. Like, this form of power scaling doesn't seem to be concerned with, like, actually genuinely understanding the text and the narrative. It literally is just like, what arguments can you find, and then how can you defend those arguments to try to get a character to X, Y, or Z position. And like, the real problem here is not with the fact that Sage and Merchant happen to get something wrong about Momoshiki or Kinshiki or fucking Urashiki or any of the other motherfucking shikis. The point is that the entire approach to the discourse was backwards from the get-go. And that is a much deeper problem to address that I don't really even know if we can. But hey, I still had fun with this process. I appreciate your time. I appreciate y'all participating. So yeah, next Thursday, I think we're just going to pick up where we left off, and we're going to get through the video. It's naive of me to think we're going to get through even the 40-minute section in that one stream. But honestly, just to be totally candid, also, walking around, like, listening to the audio for that video and trying to, like, prep and taking notes and stuff like that, like, I had a lot of fun with this stuff, with the astronomy stuff. I did not have fun listening to that video, man. It's like, it's just really depressing. It's saddening. It's like frustrating. It sucks. It sucks to hear something that you love so deeply and care about so much and have put, like, so much time and effort into, just getting so egregiously misunderstood and misrepresented, and knowing that that comes with such, like, passive aggressive, snide, condescending, like, anti-personal, I don't know how else to call it, right? Just like really, really shitty attitudes towards other people. Like, this whole thing of, like, if you don't agree with this, then you just haven't read the books. If you fucking like listening to the language that Sage uses sometimes is, like, really fucking depressing, because he's like, now you might find other people out there that try to tell you and try to get around this, and if those people are going to be special pleading and they're going to be rats and they're going to be disingenuous, then here's what you tell them, right? It's like, it's almost like apologetics coaching, where it's like, hey, it's like the same shit that I've heard from Christian apologists before, right? Like, if people try to challenge you on the Bible, uh, they're agents of the devil. The devil is a liar, right? Like, people are out there who disagree with you. They're your enemies. They're there to test your faith, right? Like, you can know that somebody is being dishonest to you because they'll be disagreeing with you, right? It's just like, it sucks. It sucks. It really sucks, and it's, to me, it's like so unnecessary, and it's so such a radical and awful departure from what the series is about, and I'm not having fun with it. I'm not enjoying it. Like, I don't think I've been able to get through to the motherfucker in the past year, like, at all. um I feel like none of the attempts at conversation that I've had have been productive. None of the feedback that I've given has been well received, and it just keeps getting worse. And I don't know how much longer I can continue to go over this. um I'm not whining about it, like, I'm not trying to whinge, like, I chose to engage with this, but I unless I find a very compelling reason to in the future, like, this is probably going to be the last Sage video I listen to, because in the same way that I like stopped listening to Noodles debates and stopped going over his stuff until this recent thing came out, for the most part, like, it's just, I don't like listening to somebody shit all over something that I love and then tell me that I'm dishonest for caring more about it than they do. It's extremely it's like a bad use of the limited amount of time that I have. So, um that being said, it's never a bad use of time to connect with you guys about this stuff and to share the dialogue and to talk about the concepts and learn about the series. I don't feel like any of that time is wasted. So that part of it I love and I look forward to every week. I just I'm trying to take Ursa's feedback from last stream to heart and practice a little non-attachment. So we'll see. The rats, we are the rats. How does it go? Like, we pray at night, we stalk at night. It's fucking. Yes, I hereby appoint myself the giant rat that makes all the rules. Except the only rule is, like, don't be an asshole, and apparently that's hard to follow. Anyway, have a great night, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend. I'll see you next week, and I hope that you is good for you in good times. And okay, bye.